The meeting is now reconvened to open session. The board would like to remind the public that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. It is also available via live stream for the public through links found on the front page of the RUSD website. We would also remind everyone to please enter and exit through the lobby. Now move to item 4.1, report of action taken in closed session. Tonight, I'll be reading a statement that was prepared by the board. In response to litigation filed on April 23rd by the California Department of Education, the board majority gave direction this evening to the superintendent to pursue a pro bono legal services agreement for the May 15th board meeting. With multiple cases actively in courts throughout the state and nation, and in light of the inconsistencies and contradictions of state and federal law in regards to parent notification policies, the RUSD board awaits clarification from the courts. RUSD will continue to focus their time and efforts on student achievement while the courts handle this matter. Thank you. Trustee Counter, will you please introduce our color guard?
Excellent, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the presentation of the colors by the Rocklin Unified School District's Junior ROTC Color Guard and the Pledge of Allegiance. The commander and U.S. flag bearer for this evening's color guard is Cadet Captain Ryan Manning. The state flag is carried by Cadet Master Sergeant Evan Lehman. The right guard is Cadet First Lieutenant Kevin Laguna Gonzalez. The left guard is Cadet Staff Sergeant Titan Owens. The alternates for tonight are Cadet Captain Sophia Burkhalter and Cadet First Lieutenant Christopher Renner.
Thank you. We will now move to item 5, our special recognition presentations. 5.1, RUSD Family Partners in Education. Chief Desange, will you please introduce our family partners this evening?
Good evening, President Sadoff, trustees, and Superintendent Stock. The Families Partners in Education program allows the Rocklin Unified School District to recognize family engagement and involvement to help our students achieve excellence during the school year. Rock Creek Elementary School Principal Bevan Glover is here to introduce the Martinelli family for tonight's Family Partners in Education recognition.
Good evening, Superintendent Stock, President Sadoff, and Board of Trustees. It is my absolute pleasure this evening to introduce the Martinelli family. I'm going to have them all stand. They're right here. And I do mention Martin very briefly, but really this is about Jessica. So I'm going to have Jessica come on up. Come here. All right, so the Rock Creek, we just would not be the same without the Martinelli family. Not only are the Martinelli kids fantastic, but both Martin and Jessica contribute to Rock Creek through their PTC leadership, but Jessica definitely contributes a lot, although you will see Martin flipping burgers at the family barbecue. And Jessica really is practically an honorary staff member. She served as Rock Creek's PTC president for the past 2 years, and in her tenure has brought a number of great family events to our school with an equity lens, making membership free for every single family on our campus, accommodating working families with later PTC meetings, and providing a space for our larger Rocklin community to come and support Rock Creek. As an example, this year she brought in local authors to come and read to our kids during our March Drop Everything and Read Day. There's more. Additionally, our PTC makes our staff feel so loved and appreciated through all of our staff appreciation efforts, including Starbucks runs, which are our favorite, snacks during conference week, and more. Jessica also serves our school not just as our PTC president, but she's also an art docent, and she volunteers in her children's classrooms. Ari, who is in 4th grade, Cece, who is in TK, and Nico, who is in 3rd grade. The Rock Creek community is deeply appreciative of the great efforts and work that take place because of the Martinelli's engagement in our school community. Rock Creek is a great place because of families just like them. Thank you so much. We love you, Martinellis.
Yeah, you don't get to sit down yet. Thank you so much on behalf of the board and RUSD for everything you both do. I know how important it is to have the PTC presidents that are so involved, and you know every little storage place on campus and where everything goes and who to talk to, and it's just so valuable to the whole community. And flipping burgers is no joke. I've done that before. It's like an assembly. You can't stop. You can't take a break. Just keep going. So that is still very valid as well. But we really appreciate you. I know your school community does. I know the 3 of your kids do too. It's so great for them to see you guys both out and so involved. So thank you so much.
For those that couldn't see, that was Smarties we were giving out for if a kiddo has to come to a board meeting, they at least get to get a Smarties from the board. So it was great to get to recognize your entire family. Thank you for coming this evening. Chief Desange, will you please introduce our employee recognition for the night?
President Sadoff, trustees, and Superintendent Stock. Tonight for our employee recognition, Springview Middle School Principal Danielle Lauer joins us to introduce Chris Gavin.
Good evening, Superintendent Stock, President Sathoff, and Board of Trustees. Thank you for aligning tonight with Rock Creek because we are already recruiting the Martinelli family. So, with great pleasure, this is Mr. Chris Gavin, our lead custodian. Anyone who has set foot on the Springview campus in the last year has met Mr. Chris. He is friendly, outgoing, and always willing to help. Chris is just the custodian that Springview needed. When you arrive at Springview on any given day, Chris will greet you with a smile, and he is quick to ask your name. One of Chris's many talents is that he remembers everyone's name. It's quite impressive and really makes all who interact with him feel valued and recognized. Chris's warm smile and kind words brighten both students and staff's day. We like to hang out in the front of the school each morning, and Chris knows more names than I do. And now it's almost a contest when we see him coming, who will know more. If you hang out near Chris at lunch, you will observe him checking in on students by name and always remembering something unique about them. This past December, I conducted a student forum with our 7th and 8th grade homeroom representatives. During this forum, I was seeking input about our SEL work and adult connections on campus. Almost every single student in the room mentioned that Mr. Chris knows everyone and makes them feel welcome. They recently made him a gratitude poster as well. Chris consistently goes above and beyond the call of duty, ensuring that our facilities are clean, safe, and well-maintained. But being a middle school custodian entails so much more than that. Chris is interrupted constantly to assist with a delivery, an injury, a need of supplies, support with an air conditioner, locker room supervision, and he always shows up to help with a positive attitude and smile. One of the duties Chris has to do more often than we all would expect is that when a student, most often our 8th graders, accidentally kick a shoe onto the roof, Chris always offers to go get it so they don't get in trouble. He laughs at the silliness of the situation, and when time permits, he gets the shoe, and the student always thanks Chris profusely. Whenever we have school events, Chris jumps in with our all-hands-on-deck approach. He is running around assisting staff with setup and takedown, all while maintaining his other responsibilities. It is with great pleasure that I extend my heartfelt thanks and sincere appreciation for all that Chris does for Springview. He's a valued member of our team. He consistently demonstrates his dedication, kindness, and genuine commitment to fostering a positive environment for everyone. We're so lucky to have you.
Chris, I'm so honored to give you this award. I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate you and all that you do for the kids. I am a product of a wonderful custodian at our school who, when growing up, I always could count on Mr. Joe to make me feel welcome and loved when I stepped on campus. And I hear that that's what you do for the kids on your campus. And it's incredibly important what you do. My own son, when he graduated from 8th grade, I asked him if he wanted to buy flowers for his teachers, bring him gifts, and he said just one, and he brought it to the custodian. You are the heart of your school, and you are very much appreciated. And I think you are an unsung hero. If I could sing, it wouldn't be unsung anymore. So this is for you. You're very welcome, and this is for you. And do you have family here to take a picture with?
We'll now move on to item 5.3. I'd like to invite Dr. Tony Lamoja, our Associate Superintendent of Human Resources, to introduce our new Assistant Director of Special Education.
Thank you, President Satoff. Good evening, trustees, Superintendent Stock, Ms. Georgia. I have the pleasure this evening to introduce to you our new Assistant Director of Special Education and Support Programs, Dee Torrington. Come on down, Dee. So Dee currently serves with us as a program specialist in special education since 2020, but she's also had various roles since 1999 with us as a resource specialist, as a special day class teacher. She's been at our middle school. She's been at our elementary school. She also serves roles on some state CARS programs, or which associations where we've actually co-presented from a union and district perspective on writing special education language. I think just based upon all her experience and just who she is and who I've got to experience. She's also a member of the negotiating team, and that's how I got to know Dee, because she used to throw bad things at me. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. But proud to have her as our new Assistant Director of Special Education and Support Programs. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Satoff, trustees, Superintendent Stock, and Georgia. Thank you so much for this opportunity. As you know, I've worked in Rocklin for many, many years, supporting students with disabilities and their families. and I'm so excited to continue this in my new capacity. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dee, on behalf of the board. Welcome. Although you're not new, we so appreciate you taking this new opportunity. Thank you very much. Okay. At this time, oh. Waving to everyone watching. I love it. Congratulations again. Thank you and welcome. Okay, now's the time where we'd like to thank you and your families for joining us. While you are more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, we also know you have busy lives and it is fully appropriate to sneak out at this point. Thank you all for being here. Okay, we will now move on to item 6.1. I'd like to welcome CSEA President Bettina Hart to present the CSEA report this evening.
Good evening, President Sathoff, members of the board, and Superintendent Stock. I'd like to express my gratitude for making me feel so welcomed and valued this last month when I was part and invited to join you on our new electric bus for the prize patrol. I'm thankful for Matt, who took the time to answer all my questions regarding the new bus and explaining on how it would benefit our district. I appreciate the time that each one of you took asking me about myself, my goals for CSEA, and also show me that we're all in this together and that you care about us and our well-being, and I'm looking forward to collaborating with you in the future. Vice President Price isn't here. However, it was raining really, really bad that day. She had her hair in a ponytail. Mine was a total mess. And she complimented me, made me laugh, and made me feel very welcome. And I so appreciated her for taking the time to coming out and supporting our members. I have to say, though, that one of my favorite moments was when we were at Cobblestone Elementary, there to celebrate a counselor and a paraprofessional. And while we were standing on the ramp overlooking the blacktop watching the students have their recess, a couple of students came up and asked Superintendent Stock if he was the president. And the way that he interacted with this student really showed me how much he's invested in our students. And I thank you for that. And I also thank you for also taking time to talk to me and treat me with respect and kindness. Your support for CSA is known and so appreciated. So moving forward, I wanted to recognize the CSEA employees that we did visit throughout the district who were awarded the Employees of the Year. In transportation, it was Christina Mattox. In health and students, it was Yvonne Tibbetts. For food and nutrition, it was Rosa Sanchez. With security, Karen Cox. In paraprofessional, it was Dave Mazan. Custodial and maintenance was Eric Schmid. Skilled trade with Ralph Ruiz. Technical was Jason Smyers. And clerical administrative was Carrie Schlentz. As a former special ed aide and working at Whitney, I got to work in the classrooms and such, but I have to say that being present when Tim Farnan was presented with the Secondary Teacher of the Year was so special. He was so humbled, and he had a hard time speaking, and to really realize that he was speechless and didn't realize what effect he has on his students. So I felt very honored to be able to be there and experience that. So as for some CSA news, yesterday we had our April meeting, and we discussed some of the following items. We have a CSA scholarship for graduating seniors. The scholarship is for paying CSEA chapter members who have graduating seniors. Right now, we have a total of $3,000 to be able to be divided between those who apply. We are looking to raise the amount to $5,000 for the 24-25 school year. So that's something that we're going to be working on our next meeting. Also, we talked about negotiations. Our rep, Mo Kang, came to our meeting via Zoom, and she was there to answer any questions that we had regarding what was coming up and what was needed. And our members who attended our meeting really appreciated her knowledge and her support, and that was pretty much all I could really ask for so far. We also voted on delegates to attend our conference this summer down at San Jose, which is going to be July 28th through August 1st. I'm excited to say that we have 4 CSEA delegates attending. Myself, Liz Salazar, and 2 special education aides, Kim Clementi and Jamie Spears Howard. This is the first time we've had 4 delegates attend, and I'm really excited for us to be able to come back with information to share with our members. We haven't had that in quite a while. Our next meeting is going to be May 20th over at Skipolini's. It's our end of the year where we're going to talk about the great things that have happened and also how we're going to be moving forward with next year and what our members are needing and how we can be more supportful. So that's pretty much it. And again, I thank you guys for everything, your support through it all. And I'm just glad to be here tonight, and I appreciate everything you guys have done for our union. So thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Bettina, for the comments this evening. We'll now move to item 6.2. Welcome RTPA President Travis Majette to present the RTPA report.
Thank you and good evening. I'm gonna echo the sentiment, all the recognition that was well deserved with the prize patrol. I think I told you guys last time, but I was unavailable, so I got to send my vice president to go, and it was funny that her apprehension of like, do I want to get on the bus with all the district people and like ride around, and then Bettina and I are joking today about like how that's a little magic opportunity like for all the district leadership to get on a bus and just talk about things that are completely unrelated, but just like human things and appreciation of that, and just a really cool opportunity. But I want to kind of again echo the comments. For those of you that don't know, Tim Farnan, our secondary teacher, he's my department chair. So he is like very near and dear to me, and he's the teacher that kids don't know if they love or hate him until they're seniors, and then they realize how genuinely magical he was for their educational opportunities, because he oftentimes teaches advanced geography as freshmen, and then has a lot of those kids back as an AP government teacher as seniors. So they have kind of a gap in there, and they get to deal with the rest of us kind of in the middle sometimes. But it's just, he really is one of the most humble, but probably underappreciated staff members on all of our campus. He really is one of those magical people. So I know he's not listening because he's playing golf or playing with his dog or something. I touched a button. I made it mad. Sorry. So kind of in that light of recognition, RTPA had an opportunity, it was just a couple weeks ago now, where we have through our Capital Service Center, which is like our SAC region kind of union leadership group, they host awards, and we were able to, our leadership team chose Patrick Gale to be nominated and recognized as our WHO Award. Patrick Gale is he's a site rep at Whitney High School. He's a mostly AP language arts teacher. He has some other language arts courses there as well. But he was recognized for his work and for getting RTPA off the ground in the umbrella of equity. And that, to us, is a very big deal right now, as it should be across the board all over the place, but this year especially. So it was really awesome opportunity to see Patrick recognized. And that the way that award happens is we kind of put out to our leadership team of like who's a standout member, what have they been doing, whether they're somebody that has a title or they're just a union member that has just been doing amazing things in kind of our union umbrella of work. And Pat was a unanimous a person that came from our ranks. So it was great. Pat and his wife got to go attend. They put on a semi-fancy dinner, and you get to give a speech, or you have to give a speech, I guess, however you look at that. But so he got that recognition, and now he's one of our handful of people that they actually give him an OWL award. So it's who for we honor our own, but then it's who for like who, right? So so they got these cool awards, and he's told me it's now gladly living in wherever his high school trophies and things like that live at his home. So anyway, other updates. So want to update, I don't know how often you guys get to share with each other, but the room and the board and anybody that's listening, that I had an opportunity to sit down with President Sadoff last week. I think it was last week. Feels like a long time, but yesterday at the same time. So, and I want to acknowledge just that meeting is a step in the right direction from some of my frustrations and things that I feel like I've shared with you guys, and it didn't solve anything or everything, right? But it solved something, and the fact that we got together and we had a conversation. So I definitely want to acknowledge my appreciation for that. And if nothing else, it gave us an opportunity to acknowledge where we want to be, where we're definitely not, and then start putting some things in place that maybe we'll get there, right? Whether it's in a year, it's in a month, but it's the intent to work in that direction, I think, is the best case scenario right now. I'm going to kind of segue that to that was really about all I had to talk about tonight. But then you guys came out and updated from closed session, and there was a media release not even an hour ago on things. So I'm going to give you guys some updates, and hopefully you can give me some updates just because I keep getting the same questions and I can't answer for my membership. So update-wise, when it comes to, we've gotten a lot of questions lately on where is the district policy and the court cases and the things that go around that from the September 6th outing policy conversation. So just so you guys know, update from us is that we had our final date to file all of our final briefs with PERB. That was on this past Friday. So we submitted everything. Now it's in the waiting game of how the bureaucracy of PERB kind of works. So we could hear as soon as a month. We could hear as far out as a lot longer than that. I don't know. There's no magical timeline. So, but a part of those updates, there was information that we were able to provide from PERB that we had a little limited information on that I'm hoping you guys can help me with some information as far as updates go. So one of the things was our TPA was made aware, and we had the documentation from a public request that the appeal or the reconsideration, I don't know if appeal is the right word, so I apologize if it's not for the legal side of things, with the CDE complaint that was denied. But we haven't heard any updates since then. So then we hear a press release today, and we hear the board come back from closed session and announce that they've elected to seek legal counsel connected to that somehow. So I'm honestly, when that the words I wanted to say up here would not be professional or appropriate. I promise they won't come out, but that was my general reaction hearing that we're moving forward in whatever, I think it sounded like a pro bono law firm, something or other. And I'm sure that's to quiet some of the noise around we're using district resources and things towards what's really a self-created problem. But where I'm a little more frustrated is I thought President Sadoff, and I don't mean for this to be a me and you thing, but since you and I had the conversation, I thought one of the things, the takeaways I left that conversation from our TPA and the board or Tiffany and Travis was there was going to be efforts in just try not to surprise each other, so we don't end up in a combative or a kind of a sides of any topic. And I know it's something that I have a great opportunity with Superintendent Stock whenever the opportunity presents, and I'm under the assumption that there was an opportunity, so that may not have been, and so I'll put that out there as well. But whenever there's an opportunity to kind of just not have each other feel surprised on decisions or future decisions that might be coming that are going to impact all of us. So to hear a report out from closed session, it just left me with a lot of questions. So I'm going to ask you some of those questions, and hopefully you guys can provide some clarification. But So my understanding of just where things are, so we've got the PERB thing, which is like the employee side of this issue happening. We've all kind of done our part, and it's in the hands of those powers that be, and we're in the waiting game. And then we've got a couple violation reminders from CDE now, and I know that our membership has a lot of concern on what do their consequences mean to the district? Because some of the things in the original findings from that mention things like loss of district resources, funding, and those kinds of things. So what does that mean now that CDE has filed suit against the district, and it sounds like the board is voting to, I guess, accept that challenge or that opportunity and get our own legal representation to fight or to challenge that in court. So what is that going to mean for district resources? And I honestly am not interested in the tagline of we're using a pro bono firm because it's not going to cost district resources. Because at the end of the day, it is. Whether it's money or it's resources of time and energy, it's going to cost something of Rocklin Unified. And more than anything, it's just going to put us back in the headlines that we've tried so hard to not be in for the wrong reasons. So I'm hoping you can update, like, what does that mean? I didn't really quite understand what your update was of what you guys voted to do. So if I'm misinterpreting that, please clarify, and feel free to interrupt me now. You don't have to listen to me ask more questions if you can do that already, or if you can just provide. But what does that mean for Rocklin Unified moving forward? What does that mean for the impact it's going to have on the district, both fiscally and non-fiscally? And then what does it mean for our community when we're just going to continue fighting something that 2 different times a state entity has told us is discriminatory, and then I'm supposed to go out and talk to students about getting along and understanding and accepting each other. For those of you who don't know, I'm newly the Whitney High School girls flag football coach. And just today we had a spring training before I came here, and I had students asking about, what does that mean? Like, what's happening with that? So I think there's a desire to just have an update, good, bad, or otherwise, so people know what's going on. But not just like, here's the headline of what's happening, but like, what does all this actually mean for me, a student in school, me, an employee of the district, right? A board member, a community member, all the impacts, because again, we can play the game of it's going to cost money or it's not going to cost money, but that's like the easy side of all of this, the side of the impact it's already had on students and it's continuing to have, and will as long as we're talking about topics and things that target and isolate and you know, kind of put people in a spotlight in a negative way. You know, that's something that needs to be addressed from not just an RTPA, but a Rocklin Unified. So those are my questions. If there's just any clarity you guys can provide on whatever your update was, in my long-winded way of asking that.
Thank you, Travis. I appreciate your report tonight. And I was trying to write down the specific questions, but I think what I'm hearing is where are we at right now? And really the intent of the readout tonight was because I had heard a lot of questions already in the community today, and I feel like it is important that the board communicates really clearly. Unfortunately, the board doesn't have an opportunity to talk to each other until they have a board meeting, and so if there's pending litigation, then that's able to be discussed, or if there's an agendized item. And so I do want to make sure I'm appropriate that we haven't agendized this item yet, and so the readout tonight was actually to try to let the community know we're hearing a lot about this, that the community wants answers and clarification. So that's why we've actually signaled that May 15th, that item will be on the agenda. So that way we can discuss this legal services agreement that we're looking at entertaining. And just to reiterate, because I had heard a little bit about litigation, are we initiating? Litigation was initiated on the school district April 23rd. The conversation on litigation was in response to that. So this isn't a seeking out litigation. This is a response to litigation on the district. And then I do think it's good, that last paragraph, and we'll go ahead and actually share that statement as well, can type it out. But that because of the inconsistencies and contradictions between state and federal law, that's why we really feel like, as a board, RUSD wants to continue their focus, their time and efforts on student achievement while the courts handle this matter. I hope that helps answer the questions. Thank you, Travis, for coming tonight. If you still have additional questions, I'm happy to talk more. I did appreciate us being able to have a coffee together. And again, we didn't want to just stay silent. I wanted to make sure we communicate clear with the community what has happened and what we're planning to do, so that way the community can engage with us.
Okay. Can I ask, what was the vote to move forward with that item to be on the agenda?
It's actually not a vote, it was a direction that was given to the superintendent by the board majority. So there wasn't a vote. A
So
vote wasn't
there-
necessary or needed on it. On the action item at May 15th, there will be a vote.
Okay, can we ask who brought that? You know, I don't know if it's we see it in here, so I don't know how closed works, but what was the conversation? Or if it was an action by a board majority, then it sounds like there had to be some sort of count of, is there a majority or not?
Unfortunately, I am unable to discuss pending litigation, but when we agendize it on May 15th, I'd be happy to talk about it more publicly then.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you both for your reports. We'll now move on to item 7.1, comments from our student board representative, which unfortunately, good and bad, she's not here because she actually graduated early, so that's a great thing to celebrate. Unfortunately, her alternate wasn't available as well. So we will now be moving on to item 7.2, comments from our board and superintendent. Colleagues, do you have any comments for this evening?
Sure. Okay, I do have a couple recent things. So I was able to attend the Quarry Trail Carnival, which I know I had talked about a little bit last time, and the fact that I had gotten my husband Chris to also volunteer. But the cool thing was they had so many high school volunteers that they didn't even need us. So we got to let the big kids hang out with the little kids and teach them how to play the games from all over the world, and Chris and I got to go and walk around and spend time with our kids. So it turned out really, really great. I did want to mention that in my role on the City of Rocklin Community Recognition Commission, we had our Rucola Awards ceremony last week, and excellent recipients all around, but I did want to just note the Rocklin Boy Scout Troop 219, Pack 29, and Troop 29 were recognized for their work planting trees and beautifying the community. So I wanted to give them an extra shout out here. I also just want to give a thank you to teachers. I know this is such a busy time of year with all the events and end of year preparation and testing and all of that that's going on. Related to that, I just want to encourage any parents listening to check your parent square every day, because I noticed that staff are really great at updating it, but if you miss a day or two, you could miss out on signups or costumes that your kids need to bring to school or snacks or whatever. So check it every day. Also, having Principal Lauer here from Springview reminded me to just put another plug to vote for Joe McLean for the teacher award through NBC Sports Bay Area, because then the school will receive, I don't remember the amount, a couple $1,000s, right? Oh, 5 digits. So that's a big deal. So you can vote every day, and it's very easy once you have the little link. So help them out over there. That's all I have. So thank you.
I know we usually have from the student rep, we have all those great activities and things that are going on. I know from being around the schools and seeing the things, like, I know we're finishing up the year, so thank you to the teachers for all the work and putting it in and finishing things up, going through the testing, the state mandated testing, which is always a bit challenging towards the end of the year when the sun's out. And then thank you to CSEA. As you walk around the schools and as you're going in there, they look amazing. So thank you to that. And then just looking forward to all the graduations and all the final events. So fun at the end of the year.
You know, one of the great things I spoke last time about spring is that it gives us a reminder and opportunity to celebrate so many good things that are happening in our district. And I could probably sit here all day and read the many great things, but there was something really incredible that happened this weekend that I thought would be great to share with you and our community. Mr. Just from GOMS brought the symphonic band to Sac State to play in the Golden Empire Music Festival. I want to make sure I get the details correct. They performed 3 pieces in the beautiful Capistrano Concert Hall, while being judged. And they also did a small critique clinic afterwards, and I heard they absolutely crushed watched it. And so just a shout out to all of those students, and just yet another example of the many extra opportunities that we have available in our district because our teachers take that extra step. And so I just wanted to do a public shout out, not only to all the students and to Mr. Just, but to the parents as well. Getting something like that to happen on a Saturday is no easy task. So thank you for that. With that, Superintendent Stock, do you have any comments for the evening?
Just again to reiterate, thank you both to Bettina and Travis in acknowledging just the phenomenal employees we have and taking time out of your schedules to be a part of that recognition. We know it's special when we really kind of rush into the space with a big crowd and balloons and flowers, and really these are often once in a lifetime of a career recognition. So having you all as part of it is great. Also, just if you have not registered your child or you know someone that should, we are still open for registration. We are getting a lot of TK registration coming in every week as we monitor in kindergarten, but you can do that through our website 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so it really helps you that not wait, but it helps us in our planning to make sure we have all the staff and everything we need. So if you know someone thinking about coming into our school district, tell them not to wait. And so we want to just encourage that as well. Also, that we have really, I've been out looking as a board set direction on making math improvement a top goal for our district. Had the opportunity to be out in most of our schools with our team and our principals watching the work and the progress on that. And it's great to see in the height of spring that the focus of students, teachers, and just to see the practice evolve. And so very thankful for the leadership in our classrooms and our schools for that work. And also want to just mention again that we are very excited as we look forward to graduations, promotions, and then our annual employee recognition event later this month.
Okay, thank you for the comments this evening. We'll move on to item 8.1. At this time, I'd like to call forward a National Demographics Corporation to present on the transition to by-trustee area elections. Unfortunately, our demographer is out ill this evening, so we are here. We have a visit from the president of the company, Mr. Doug Johnson. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. Justin sends his regrets, but it turns out he has strep throat, and so every school knows it's good he's not in the room with everybody else. So, yes, indeed. But it's my pleasure to be here with you. So, the first part of this will be a little review. We always like to touch on the criteria and the rules as we introduce the maps in case there are public participants who don't know them by heart at this point, which I imagine you are getting to that point yourselves, because we have been through an extensive process here, starting back in January, then adoption of the intent resolution in March, get this really rolling, and then the state has a process where we have to do a series of hearings. So we did the first two informational hearings, and then April 17th, we had the first map discussion. So it is a process to get to the maps, and that's where we are now, is deep in with the maps. Justin took your feedback at the last meeting and has a couple of new maps to show you that he has prepared based on your feedback and direction from the last meeting. And we are now at that post-map 2 hearing you see listed there for May 1st. This is going to lead to the final hearing and likely board vote on May 15th. So this is really the second to last chance for the public to weigh in and share their thoughts before this board acts. And again, this is an unusual process, and the board vote is not the final step. It then has to go to the County Committee on School District Organization, who will hold their own hearing and then vote. They actually have the final vote on this process. In terms of the criteria for how these maps are developed and evaluated, there's first federal laws. We have equal population, which is very strict based on the 2020 census data. Just a couple of percent plus or minus are allowed on that. You've seen the impact of in some of the early maps of trying to hit those numbers. Then we have the Federal Voting Rights Act, which all the maps we're looking at do comply with, which And so there's both you have to ensure representation of a protected class in the Federal Voting Rights Act, but at the same time, you can't go too far. No racial gerrymandering, meaning race cannot be the predominant factor in the adoption or selection of a map. So those are federal laws. We've been dealing with those for a long time. New for 2024 for school districts is a set of California criteria under the Fair Maps Act. So you're one of the first school districts to go through this process with these rules. And as listed in the middle here, they are in prioritized order: contiguity, avoiding divisions of neighborhoods and communities of interest, then avoiding divisions of cities and census-designated places. Here, thankfully, that's not really a factor because you're essentially all within the city. That one's been tricky on a couple of our clients. Schools are wondering, why are we dealing with city lines? Because Sacramento told us to. Following that is easily identifiable boundaries, trying to follow freeways, rivers, that kind of thing. And then the last of the state criteria, again in prioritized order, is being compact. So unless it's to achieve a higher priority criterion, we don't want to bypass one group of people to get to another group of people in a trustee area. California also has a prohibition that you see there: shall not adopt a map for the purpose of favoring or discriminating against an incumbent, a political candidate, or a political party. So those are our legal requirements. And then if we have two maps that are essentially equal on all those criteria, then we can look at what the courts have called traditional redistricting or districting principles. For districting, which is the first time drawing a map through this, it really is just, if you have two equal maps on the legal criteria, then you can pick one that best accommodates future growth. But it's pretty rare that we get all the way to that point without picking a map. And here, of course, as you have discussed at your last hearing, the major focus is on that, trying to keep neighborhoods and communities of interest together. So looking at our draft maps, 103 was shown at the last meeting. You can see the major difference between this and the next map I'll show is up in the northwest, where we have kind of trustee areas 4 and 5 really stacked on top of each other. And you'll see the difference to the next map, and then 3 to the east of them. What are shown is the blue and red here, trustee areas 1 and 2 in this map, are very, very similar in both maps that we're looking at, and in the revised versions that Dr. Levitt prepared for today. So we get kind of a northwestern 5, a western 4, and a more central 3 in 103. And then in 104, we have more of a consolidated northwest region. So that means area 1 doesn't go all the way east. It does have some weird notches and all that. You'll see that's been cleaned up on the board's direction. A lot of times we get questions, why'd they do that? It's like, well, they're trying to get the population perfect. And you don't have to get the population perfect if it means keeping the neighborhood together. But you can see the difference here. In this case, the stacked 2 trustee areas are really in the middle, 2 and 3 here, with the west more consolidated. So 103 was revised to make 111. Really the focus was uniting that area around Twin Oaks Elementary and getting all of the Park Drive area into trustee area 3. So that southern end of what's shown in green here is where most of the changes took place. And you can see just smoother lines as Dr. Levitt went through and cleaned those things up. There are some small changes in the southeast between 1 and 2, between the 2 maps. You can see there's really just one block where the pink trustee area 1 comes into 2. That's for population balancing, is the reason we're leaving that major road. In map 112, which is a revision of 104, you can see it's a somewhat longer stretch where it comes over there to balance the areas in the southeast. It's a little weird because the numbering changes from map to map. That's because these started with community submitted maps, and we don't want to change the numbers when someone sends in a map. So again, you can see this is the revised version of 104, much smoother lines. The general idea is the same, but with 3 and 2 really stacked in the middle. The major changes here, try to get them right from the notes here, was really kind of cleaning up the small neighborhood lines, avoiding those jigs and jags that were done originally to balance population. There is an area you can see down in the west, right around, I'm going to say this wrong, Rubicula Element? Is that close? Okay. I was practicing that. That neighborhood is divided because there's no way to keep the whole thing together and within that equal population requirement. But he did manage to get just about everything else united neighborhood by neighborhood. We also did get one new map in after last meeting, map 113. It's more of a 5 slices approach. Unfortunately, the resident did draw it using a map of the city first, so there were areas included. So when the resident drew it, it looked population balanced, but once we took those non-school district portions of the city out, it's no longer population balanced. But we did want to show it and acknowledge that we appreciate everyone spending their time on this process to share their thoughts. So, and then as before, the election sequencing, you can see with both 112, well, with 112, the sequencing just falls into place. And then for map 111, there would be a decision needed on which seats would be up. There, in 2024, you could have 1, 3, or 4. Trustee areas 1, 3, or 4, and it would be any of those, any 2 of those. And then in 2026, it would be areas 2, 5, and then the remainder of 1, 3, or 4, whatever you didn't choose for 2024. So that's a kind of a quick spin through this. Happy to look at any details of these maps. They have been posted for a week on the district's website, so hopefully residents have had a chance to look at them. And I do want to note that there is the interactive map where you can zoom in and out. Residents have not been limited just to these 8.5 by 11 PDFs. So, any questions you have on this? Or
Yeah, so I guess just taking a look at some of the maps and understanding, and I know there's some balancing of lines and things. In taking a look at a couple of these, I don't say make edits, but is there a way to take the benefits of a map and transfer them to another map? Because I think there's some lines that fit well and kind of balance things out, and then, like, to me, it's just easy. And I know the numbering, the district numbering changes depending on how you do it, so that, you know, on map 1 of them, at District 1 is District 5, or, you know, when you bounce it back. Is there a way to kind of take the positives or the, you know, like the deviations, the populations, et cetera, like can you pick a map and redraw this district to match this district on this map, and they kind of line up a little better? Or, I mean, I know I'm editing, but like, is there a way to just do that, to take the best of multiple maps and kind of say, hey, here's some good parts, here's some good parts, and then it at least makes it easier to digest without saying, well, this lines don't make sense, but this one they do, type thing.
So sometimes yes, sometimes no. So
Okay.
like down in the southeast, the 2 boundaries I talked about where in
Yeah, I think like map,
112,
yeah, like
you know,
112 is good. Yeah, it's like 112, and I think it's 111. They pretty much follow that railroad track line, other than a little cutout. But I think that distribution on this map 111 and the distribution on, what is it, 112, if you want to flip to that, or even 113, like if we could pick one of those and line it up, then hey, those 2 parcels kind of equal out, and there's a logical piece to that southwest. But I know I'm editing this map to make it look like this map, but is there pieces you can pull from different things and do some logic?
So yes, you could pull that southeastern seat, a trustee area. If you liked it better in 112, that could be stuck into 111. We know that because it's population balance and it's kind of stuck in its corner.
Yeah.
The other seats, like the 3 in the northwest, not really, because they're fairly radically different. And then in what's shown as 4 in 112 or 2 in 111, the kind of second seat, that similarly can be adjusted exactly where it's
correct. The only challenge, and so I know I used, I guess it's map, is it map 1? The one that's on there is 112. Mm-hmm. 112 and 111, they kind of follow similar color coding. The only thing is on map 113, which is nice, is the district boundaries of cobblestone carry over across that street. So kind of in the middle, south.
Talking about the green?
Yeah, the green section in 3, where it says Cobblestone Elementary, the boundaries for that school carry over into that green area like it is, but if you flip to 112, they're using the street as the cut. Again, there's some benefits to that. Like you just you're keeping continuous neighborhood around an elementary school, but I know if I'm changing one thing, it changes another, and I know you're trying to, so I'm just trying to take the best of multiple maps and make a map in my head.
Right. The challenge with 113 is that it's not population balanced. So, so areas 1 and 3 are slightly too far off from the balance, and 4 and 5 are not even remotely close. So
fair, but where I'm going is,
for
can you,
stuff.
again, if you took 113, can you take sections 4 and 5 from map 12, or sections 1 and 2 from map 111 and add them to 113? Does that solve one of the problems? I know I'm trying to.
It makes it better, except you'd have kind of a void between where 3 and 4 are. You would have pulled 4 southeast, and so then 3 gets pulled over, and so it kind of distorts everything. So we could certainly look at it and post another version for you to see how it turns out. We're happy to do that. Just, I would say, don't get your hopes up.
Fair.
Yes, but we're happy to try it.
Just trying to balance things out.
Yeah, you know, thank you to the effort that was made to kind of clean up those boundaries. They do look more compact now. I just wanted to just throw out I don't have much different to say aside from, you know, in looking at maps 111 and 112, you know, as far as communities of interest go, I do think 111 is closer. Like I know with 112, splitting up Rucola Elementary, I think that is maybe a distinct community of interest down there. You know, they share a campus with another school that could, you know, cause them to want to be able to kind of all vote together. And just that side of town, the horizontal split with, you know, the Quarry Trail, Sunset Ranch area above, in my knowledge of the city, seems to be a closer community of interest than to have vertical lines on that western side. Yeah, to have like the way this one uses Sunset and
Stanford Ranch.
yeah, to keep the map 111 follows the elementary school boundaries more closely than the others, which is not the only consideration, but does lend itself to some of the communities of interest.
The cobblestone piece with that map, right? So,
Yeah,
but then I don't know. I'm playing the shift.
those were all the notable things.
I appreciate the revisions. I know it's hard when you're getting a lot of pieces, I'm sure, from us, and then we want to see the map. You know, I did find it a little interesting. So looking at 112 as the revision to 104, I see that it says that you opted to use the Stanford Ranch Road as a divider, which I think does make great sense. But unfortunately, I think then what it caused when you go up between boundaries 1 and 3, then you're actually splitting apart some of our HOA communities that have voiced some concern about that. And so I was kind of wondering the thought process on that. I know that was a little bit of a conversation we had last time, is we have heard some about HOA communities wanting to stay together, or at least neighborhoods together, and not breaking up those neighborhoods. And then in addition to that, there was talk about school boundaries coming into play. And so both the school boundaries get cut out and the HOA neighborhood, Whitney Ranch, Whitney Oaks. Could you speak to that a little bit on 112, why it cut through the middle of it a little?
Yeah, you're talking about where Trustee 3, the green one, extends to the west?
Yes,
Yeah.
whereas in map 104, it didn't.
That's where the street is.
Well, so it does in the major section, but you're talking about farther north, right?
Yes, yeah. So on map 104, at least how I understood it, it seems to follow the boundary line of the HOAs. So where Whitney Ranch is on that upper left, and then Whitney Oaks, I believe, is that green area, correct? But then when it got revised to follow Stanford Ranch down below between areas 3 and 2 and 3 and 4, which I completely understood, I was just wondering why it kind of cut in a little bit up there, meaning like Quarry Trail, which those families all primarily, the neighborhood of that school is primarily Whitney Ranch, but yet it's lumped in with Whitney Oaks. Was there a reason for that?
Yeah, I think let me get back to the right map here. This one's using more the major roads where it can, and yes, it does kind of end up with HOA pieces on both sides of, and I know they're not really big roads, but trying to use distinctive roads and get those population numbers right. So that's part of the reason why you ended up with the weird kind of hooks in 104. Because where 104, so it tries to keep the HOA together, but it's actually not keeping it together. Where you see that little pink finger pointing into green, that it's getting the houses on the inside of, what road is that there? So that's Hoot Owl Loop. So the houses on the inside of the loop are in one seat, and the houses across the street on that kind of sort of a cul-de-sac neighborhood is not in there. And that's the
As
challenge
opposed
we
to
run
just
into.
drawing that all into the pink, because there's like a little gully or I don't say easement, but
Yeah.
there's like a little.
So what would happen if you
dog
made
park.
it to where you followed that HOA boundary there, and then you made up the difference down below by Rucola? So Rucola can stay together instead of taking a dip there.
This is the kind of census curse of our job, is that the Census Bureau hates cul-de-sacs and it hates hills because they want to draw their census blocks along streets. And so what we get when you have hills or creeks or anything in between is everything along that hill on both sides ends up in the same census block. And we have to use the census blocks to get our population numbers. So, let me see if I
But we were told, I guess last time when he presented, he said, don't concern yourself too much with the census blocks because they always change.
But I think for the
From-
initial drawing of it, it has to be.
from decade to decade. But
That's not what was communicated, but fair.
yeah, but
There's
we're
some
stuck with those numbers because if we divide a populated block, then we don't have an official population numbers, and equal population is the top priority, unfortunately. So what you get is the houses on the outside of Hoot Owl are in the same census block, going all the way down. Let me see here. Yeah, that block I think goes all the way down to, yes it does. Where is that?
Then is it like?
To Stanford.
Sorry, I'm looking at yours.
That's
Is it better than just to state, like, is map 112 a better representation of the green area? Fortunately, the colors are the same, but the numbers are wrong.
I think it actually
Messes it up.
I am in agreement, and I think part of it is, no offense, but Justin last time mentioned, there's usually kind of a preference toward community-developed maps at times, because I think in looking at a map, that upper road does appear to be more of a main kind of dividing line, but in the actual neighborhood, it
They're all the
actually
same hood.
doesn't, splitting it that way does cause them to be divided, so.
Because I think they're looking at the West Oaks, right? But if you live there, you have houses on both sides of West Oaks that are actually the same community because they were just built out later in the development.
100%, yeah. And the challenge, the reason, so 111 kind of represents the effort to keep that area together because the boundary's going all the way down to, what is it? It keeps flashing. The Stanford Ranch. So the houses that are on the outside of Hoot Oaks are in the same census block with the houses on the north side of Stanford Ranch Road. So that's why 111 moves not just the Hoot Oaks area, but that whole area kind of left.
But then, okay, so they, oh, yes, that's not 111, sorry. I'm just trying to do the math here quickly.
So if you want to keep it together, yeah, this is kind of how we could keep it together, really.
And then I guess from a 111, so then, again, just trying to balance out that little cobblestone area. I don't know about the census boundaries, but if you go over on the other side of the road, that's the cobblestone elementary neighborhood. take a little bit out of the
Right.
blue, but give it to the green, is what I'm trying to say. Similar to 113, the way it was done on the next map. But just that little section. I just want to steal.
Yeah.
Now, if we had liked last meeting like 103 and 104, and we don't necessarily love the revisions, it didn't sound like there were major concerns with 103 and 104, correct?
Correct. You get some odd shapes, but it's particular in 104. You get the odd shapes down by, yeah, exactly. And so the new map is trying to clean this up. But if you prefer the older map,
But could we just clean up some of those little sections instead of having to make those massive changes?
it's where the numbers don't work out. So that's where the population numbers get us.
I guess when you say numbers, we just got to stay between, I think it's what, 15,321 and 12,535, right? That's, I mean, when I looked at before, it was 13,298 with plus or minus 10%. So as long as you're less than 15,3 and above 12,
It's plus or minus
550.
plus or minus 5%.
Okay, it was 10 when he spoke last time, so now we're changing it to 5.
The range from smallest to largest is 10. And so if you have one that's over by 5 and one that's under by 5, your range is 10. So that's where the 10% comes from.
Gotcha. So you're,
Yeah. So that's why we're.
yeah. I know.
So yeah, your goal is 13,928. So you've got about plus or minus about 650 either way.
Yeah, but so I guess it's not necessarily in a high or low number. It's once you put the numbers together, once you build the map, then the next set of numbers have to be plus or minus 5%? That's how you're saying it? Or is it truly a high and a low? I'm trying to understand that.
It's high and low. You could have one that's off by.
So I can, fair, so I can have a district that's 15,300, right? Okay, so if it's 13,928 plus or minus 10.
No, plus or minus 5. Well, you could go.
So is it a plus minus 5 or plus minus 10 is what I'm trying to understand. Because it changes the maps every time we change the number.
Right. So the range has to be 10. So we say as a rule of thumb, it's plus or minus 5. But you could technically have one seat that's over by 8, as long as everything else is exactly under by 2. Because that's still a 10% range. Now, it's in a jurisdiction this size, you're not going to be able to get every district exactly the same. So maybe you could go 7% plus or minus for one seat if everything else was within 3% of perfect. But this is the challenge that we hit in every map.
Well, and it's map 111 and 112, the deviation, they both look really good, right? And at 111 actually was improved by the changes and decreased it. I have an unrelated question, I mean related, but not directly to this, because we haven't really talked about it at all, and I just wanted to see, in regards to the sequencing, right, I feel like we haven't touched on it, but just to get a little bit of perspective from you on how groups tend to kind of discuss that and decide on that.
Yeah, so often, as with some of the maps here, under the Ed Code, it's kind of dictated by where the current board members are and who's up in which seat. Under the new law, you heard we can't do this for a purpose of discriminating or favoring an
Can't
incumbent.
just line it one way
So
or the other.
Justin and I actually don't know where you live. Lozano Smith takes the draft maps and they figure out, your legal counsel figures out who lives where. And then if you end up with two board members who are in the same seat, who are in different election years, so one is up in 2024 and one is up in 2026, that's what drives the choice. And so you can look at that a couple different ways. If you have an historically underrepresented area and it happens to be vacant, then you may want that seat to come up first. And so you would pick the choice seat based on what would get the vacant seat up first, especially when the upcoming year is an election year, is a presidential election year. But you can do it for whatever reason you think makes sense.
So really, it's just because you're not taking that, so you're looking at, certain populations which I know we don't, have a lot of those
Right.
different groups, but, so, I mean, even just like geographically trying to spread it out, or, I mean, so this
can-
is kind of new, I guess.
Right.
I'm gathering that there hasn't been a lot.
Well, and in a
done
phrase that
so
I'm
far.
sure you guys hear probably every week, the ed code is not well thought out. And so normally when we're doing this, and the funkiness about where board members live triggers which sees up is in the ed code. When cities and counties and special districts do this, it's much more of a visit of, okay, it's reasonable to let the people the voters chose run again where possible, but let's also look at underrepresented neighborhoods. The other piece of it is, if there are two board members who are up, one in 2024 and one in 2026, it's a little more fair to put it in 2024, because a 2026 board member can actually, who really wants to run again, can actually run early. They can run midterm. Most don't, because you just ran. That's a lot of running. But it does give that opportunity for both who were chosen by the voters to have the opportunity to run again, as opposed to if it's put in 2026, then the 2024 member's out. So those factors come in, but it's also a lot more common where in the historic voting rights situation, you have a historically underrepresented area where people have run and, of a protected class, Latino, Asian American, or African American, have run and never been elected. So you want that seat up both as soon as you can and in the presidential year, because turnout will be higher in that area. You don't have
Not
that.
as clear here. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're not looking at a 55% protected class seat here. We're looking at, 15. That factor
And they're all
doesn't really come in.
fairly,
Yeah.
distributed across the city. Okay.
Exactly. So if it really was a coin toss, I'd say if you were picking between two, look at the one that has the biggest change in turnout from the gubernatorial election to the presidential election. That would have the best advantage by being in a presidential year, and put that in the presidential year. But that's really the kind of coin toss step.
So I guess again, going back, looking at the math, if you looked at 113 and just looking at the numbers, that section 5 is too many, right? It's too much deviation, or like, what I'm trying to say again, going back, can you take section, I think it's 5 from map 12 and make that section 5 from 113? And I think that allows you to get the number that takes the biggest deviation off the board.
I think the biggest, an issue in this one is that you're talking about,
So just from a number, like
Yeah, you're correct.
It's a 9% off, but if you go up to this one, if I just stole this District 5, it's only 0.1% off. So can I just take that one and move it there?
but this,
I'm
but
just
still, I
messing
think
with
this
5,
is,
and then it probably plays with 4 a little, but 4 you're still high. So even if I took a little from there, I'm not killing it.
but we're still then grouping this
But
north area
I'm
with.
just trying to fix
I
one
know-
piece of it.
Yeah, I just feel like it then,
That way we
before
can-
you know, we're with a
Fair.
different map altogether. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just trying to get to where
You're exactly
all
right.
maps are similar, so then it's like, okay, if you can take what I'm trying to do is, if you take all the population pieces out, and we can line them up, so it's not a huge, like, take the best of this one, best of this one, then, okay, here's 3, 4, 5 maps. All the numbers are really good, and we don't play this number's better than that number, because I take the best of all of them, and then it just comes down to where the lines are drawn. I'm just trying to go down a path.
Completely agree. And yes, we could drop the 2 southeastern seats from 111 or 112 into 113. That'll have some ripple effects, but it would certainly.
I'm trying to,
it would-
yeah,
it would
I'm just trying to
out
balance
those
the
seats.
number.
The
given that it's
place
plus or
where
minus
this gets
5.
tricky, and what we ran into with the hook area we're talking about, I just pulled the numbers up in the interactive map, you can look at them. That census block that has the outside of Hooks Owl has 867 people in it. And so when you move that one census block, because it stretches, it's both the outside of Hoot Owl Loop, and it's the north side of Wyndham Way, and all of Holly Court, all the way down to Stanford Ranch Road. All those houses so if you know the area, Stephan Court, Jason Court, Mark Court, all those houses are all in that census block. So that's why you see it in the other map.
On 112 or 1?
In 111.
Yeah,
it's
so,
picking up
that's
all
that
of
one,
this.
that's that one neighborhood across from Tri-City.
catches us with cul-de-sacs and hillsides, is the sense it puts them all in one block. But yes, if,
I'm just, again, if we can get maps that all line up, then it just comes down to, hey, if you take all the population pieces out of it and you can balance the best of best, then it just comes down to, okay, does this one fit I'm trying to eliminate the first issue.
sure, yeah, like for 113, yes, we could take some other version of what's
yeah.
here is 4 and 5, and then.
And then you clean up that.
one-
But then I know 1 becomes a different issue, so maybe it takes itself out, but.
Well, and 1 is short, but, you know, we could do the same thing in 1 that we did in, was it 112? Yes, down by Rubkala.
Good job.
You'd end up with this, essentially 1 would be, the line would move down by Rubkala. The neighborhood's split in this map, it's split in the other map, it'd probably be split in a third spot in this fixed map. But we could
Depends
fix
on where
1
you cut it. I'm just trying to
that
fix
way.
some pieces out of some pieces.
And 3 in map 113 is overpopulated by 5.19. That would probably fix itself when we put 4 and replace 4 and 5. So yeah, we can certainly come back with that map so you can have it for your final decision point.
I hate doing this.
Yeah, there's always.
Because it's a constant checkers game.
Exactly. It's the ultimate zero-sum thing. Any people you move here move from the other seat as well.
Again, just trying to keep the elementary schools somewhat consistent. Because that's the only thing. We got 2 high schools and 2 middle schools.
Yeah, I think I'm struggling with map 112 because I'm trying to compare it to before to see the changes that were made. And there's a lot of features I like about 111 and 103 as well. So 103, 104, 111, I see a lot of strengths. I think they make sense. I see what happened with 111 and 112, trying to follow the main streets, and I like that because I think it makes nice condensed sections that make sense on a map. I'm still struggling, though, with a few of these streets, like the West Oaks. Although that is a street, I don't think it makes sense for those neighborhoods that are really neighborhoods doing life together. I'd consider that a community of interest. But I also get a little worried down like Cobblestone area. You know, if you follow Stanford Ranch all the way up, and I'd love to hear my colleagues on this, if you follow, like, I feel like there's a community of interest that you have the left side of Stanford Ranch and that right side before you get up Crest. Those are really connected together. Oh, I mean, pretty much any map, but yeah, 111 is what I have open right now.
Well, and this is, yeah, where the other one.
Because
like
111
this
and
is-
112 tried to follow
111 is
Stanford
close-
Ranch.
111 is closer to doing that.
But then 113, at least.
And see, 112 is also closer, because this, I think, I mean, it's never going to be
focusing down here, but I
perfect
get you.
along
Now
those
we're all-
lines,
yeah.
but at least this keeps that a chunk here. Those are defined neighborhoods on
Yeah.
112.
Like, I think
and
Crest is a
111.
defining street. That's pretty clear when you're going up.
But like 104, the original, that's very jagged and cuts that edge of the neighborhood. 111 and 112 both seem to account for it. I agree, you know, if there was a way to rework the 104 to keep that upper central north, where it says Quarry Trail, in 1, well, and maybe it means that that area, that kind of like trapezoid to the left in green in the 3, if that maybe shifts down.
Because
to,
that's Quarry Trail neighborhood, that little trapezoid you're talking
This?
about. Yeah, that's Quarry Trail.
No.
That's Hunter.
Yeah, no, this is more, but like if this, say, we went this street right here, and we just shifted this to where this is green. Well, right, but then that would make more sense than for it to
throw 'em-
go
yeah,
into the,
but then-
to
but
go
then-
into 1
But then what are the
and move
numbers
that.
there? Do we?
I don't think these have to change. I think it's then what is, the only problem is then you start shifting that, and then do we still end up with this very strange little outcropping on two? I mean, if the 104 could, I think, be looked at to, you know, President Sathoff's point and maybe some of those considerations, that might be a good revision as well.
And I think I'd have to look back to see how the numbers changed, but I believe it was Trustee Price at the last meeting that mentioned that that one did have a large Asian population that she was trying to keep together. Was that taken into consideration when we made the changes to 112, do you know?
I don't think there was a significant change, but let me just confirm that.
Thank you, just to clarify before because that would be something, if we're chopping that up, that would concern me as well.
Yeah, so it was, no, the Asian Pacific Islander share of Trustee Area 1 was 17% in 104, and it's 17% in 112, so it stayed the same. Yeah, and actually in 2 it went up 1%, but the margin of error on that data is way more than 1%.
Because that was really the only population-centric that we found within our boundaries, correct? Everything else was much lower, under like 10%, correct?
Well, we get a number of seats that are 15% Latino as well, but but it never goes above 15.
Never, okay, except that one. Okay, thank you.
So, President Senoff, is it possible, I guess it'll be after we hear the public hearing to get the direction for
Thank you. Okay, we're now going to move to item 8.2, the public hearing to gather community input regarding proposed trustee area maps and election sequencing pursuant to Elections Code Section 10010A2. I now officially open the second public hearing. We have 2 comment cards. First up will be Kevin Cooper, and on deck will be Travis Majette.
Hopefully you guys can hear me. Is it possible that you could put up, I guess, map 113, which was technically, I think, my map, and I called it 120 so I could have it differentiated. I'd just like to talk to it. I'll speak, yeah, I'll try to be there better.
It's on that Chromebook right there
Oh,
in front of you.
I'm
Sorry about that. No, you're good.
hopefully we'll go quick enough.
Which slide did you want? 113?
113, okay. So I'd like to speak to my map. So I'm frustrated in the process because initially when it started and there were notes on the process, they were not clear and not, whatever AI was used didn't make it easy to understand. And then as I listened to the demographers talk, there are very simple terms that should be used, things like mean, median, and mode, and some other statistical words that would help us understand why some of these maps don't work. Now, while those are all points, I want to set those aside as, in my opinion, legitimate project manager critiques on the process. And then probably with an inappropriate amount of pride, I'm going to talk about why my map needs to have some thought about it. And I will respect the wishes of the board, but I want to point out that the pink area and the other area on the other side of town are the only places where there's going to be any growth. And that pink area is the one that's going to grow the most. There's lots of space there. And I don't know the level of importance that will need to be assigned to that, but I think it's something to be thought about as you guys go through the process. Overall, my concern is that the demographers need to break down some of these terms so we can understand in a way that is more clear that one map is better than the other, and not just, hey, that won't work, because at the end of the day, what we're all trying to do is build these cohesive groups where hopefully I think the elementary schools will kind of all align together. I think that's going to be super important because it'll be very difficult to discuss political issues.
Thank you, Kevin. Next up, Travis Mojet. Would you like a slide to be referenced?
Trustee Sutherland started a conversation, or at least kind of some topics here. So we've seen a lot of maps, had a lot of questions and things. Just speaking from like a community voter lens, this slide I don't think has been addressed enough yet. So as a voting member of the community, I'm still confused on, you know, what, let's say we map 12, right? 2024 election, it's at area 2 and 5, which if we match that to a map, that makes some sense. But then there's the piece of like terms that are expiring that may not be landing in area 2 and 5 depending on the map. So I'm curious how that sequencing plays out, if there can be more discussion or transparency to the community. If the seats that are up by term in the next election don't match up to the areas of the map in the next election, what does that mean for, you know, the 4 or 5 seats that may or may not be? Does that add seats? Does that, you know, how does that work? So I think just if we can get more clarity for the community on that topic of what happens when the trustee term seat that's up in 24 doesn't match the area seat that comes on as the maps are decided. Does that make sense?
Oh, we agree. Yeah.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
That is the confusing part.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other comments, I will now close the public hearing and continue on with conversation. Superintendent Stock, would you be able to speak to sequencing this evening? Or, okay, that would be great.
I will do my best, and I'll also invite Mr. Johnson to assist if I make any error in my statement. Is that he did share when asked around how do boards typically try to consider these. He commented that our board does have staggered terms, 2 in one even year, 3 in the next, and that cannot be changed. That is set on the number that come up in each of the staggered sequences, and that one consideration is if there are trustee areas that are due to have terms expiring in that next election, that you could select those so that those that have been elected by the community have an opportunity to continue in service versus they have no opportunity because their districts weren't selected and their terms are thus ended. And then also another consideration can be if there's an area that does not have a trustee in it, then that area may be selected, could be selected first to have a representative in it at the time. So that there's multiple factors that can go into how an area is selected. And so what occurs is there's really a firewall under this new law that the demographers have no information on where trustees live. They just draw the maps. And that our law firm who's advising us on complying with the law actually develops some potential sequencing schedules that could be considered. There are other schedules that could be considered, but this is a potential schedule that allows the community, the board, to view how a map may play out in the sequencing of elections. And that's why that's brought forward, and it has at each other hearing so that people can see those together. And so that's really where then the board, when they select, once they land on a map, then they can look at, okay, so what sequencing schedule are we gonna also put forward? But it does start with, is there any areas with a termed out trustee? How do we look at that? And then are there vacant areas? And again, that's just a suggested sequence. A board could pick another type of criteria if it chose to.
And the one key principle, just a big picture principle, is to emphasize no current term is cut short. So if a current board member, your term ends in 2024, obviously you're certainly serving until then. If your current term ends in 2026, you're certainly serving until 2026. these only matter when each board member's current term comes up and you want to run for reelection. And you have to be in a trustee area that's up that year.
Right, so no term can be cut short, nor can any term be extended by this process.
And that, as the superintendent said, that is what decides whether there's, in your case, there's 2 up this year because your normal cycle is 2 up this year. And there'll be 3 up in 2026 because that's your existing cycle.
So if there's 2 up this year and an empty spot, how does that get addressed? So there's,
And then the other unique feature of doing this in the very first time is all 5 of our current trustees were elected by the whole community. So in essence, everybody that voted, all areas of the community did elect people serving on the board at this initial space. This will never replicate itself in the history of the district again, but it is a unique feature that people can say, I did have a chance to vote for members of the board because they were elected at large. So if it was a different scenario, then that may be a case.
And if we were in a city, it comes up all the time when the vacant seat is up in 2026. So people in the vacant seat say, I don't have a council member. Actually, in a city, you clearly do because the 3 whose terms are up in 2026 remain at large council members. Under the Ed Code, let's just say it's a complete mess. The Lozano-Smith folks are the state experts in this. It really, really gets messy. But essentially, we would ask the board members to act as at large. It only comes up if there's a vacancy or a recall between now and 2026.
for the benefit of the public, can we also address the fact that even though only a segment of the population will get to vote for the board member representing that area, all the board members still represent all the schools and the whole district, regardless of the fact that only a portion of the community was allowed to vote for them?
We typically, I can jump ahead to what we often say in the last meeting is, beware the candidate who says, I'm going to fight for trustee area X. Because guess what? Then the candidates running for areas, the other 4 areas then have to fight for theirs, and you end up with a board that just fights. What we emphasize is legally, these trustee areas matter 1 day every 2 years. And hopefully they never matter. Obviously, there's some realities beyond that, but that is the goal.
Can you also address the confusion around, let's say 2 trustees end up in the same district area, and one is up in 2024 and one is up in 2026, and the one that is up in 2024, so that district then has to run in 2024. Does the one who's up in 2026 then have to run, or can they just say, no, I want to keep my seat? And the one who's up in 2024, can they still run even though that area is already going to be represented until 2026?
So the interpretation of state law varies from county to county. But this is why I cannot tell you how many times CSBA and NDC have spoken to legislators and just been, for the love of goodness, just
make it
just wipe out the Ed Code provision and let the elections code provision that governs everyone else govern. So it is confusing, it is a little weird. But yes, if your term ends in 2026 and you happen to live in a trustee area that's up in 2024 and you don't run, you still serve. And you still serve until 2026. Now in 2026, you'll leave the board because the seat's not up.
Okay.
I also caution folks, if a 2026 member does run midterm against a 2024 member, please keep it civil. Because if the 2024 member wins, the 2026 member is still on the board, and you're now sitting on the board next to the person you just ran against.
Okay, that was my other question. Okay, yeah, okay.
So this is when it does get really weird, is when you get in these sequencing things, which is why it's really hard to go through this in detail until we're down to a map or 2.
Actually, you just covered something very, very important that I didn't understand, and that is, so the 2026 person decides to run midterm and they go, okay, if they win, then they keep their seat till 2028, right? So if they lose, though, they still don't leave the board. So really, they don't lose anything by running. Well, no, they don't lose anything by running. They might as well go for it.
Well, the piece you'll sympathize with is that they will have just finished.
Yeah,
running.
it's not that they want
They
to,
will have-
but yeah.
Actually, we have had a couple who did run midterm, but probably 90% of the time that comes up, the board member doesn't. They're like, I'm just exhausted from the last campaign. I'm not about to jump into another one. But you see it in cities where a city council member runs for mayor in the year they're not off. So it does happen in other jurisdictions.
Okay. Yeah, I think.
You know, I heard some interest of 113, maybe some possible changes to try to make that a little more doable. Do you feel that's possible?
Yeah, I was going to say, just to confirm what I think I heard earlier, is to take 113 and can drop in the population balance to southeastern seats and then clean up the other two seats so that they're balanced and in the range well.
And I know that may not solve the whole map, but again, trying to get to a point where if the numbers all line up on all the maps, then that doesn't become a factor in decision, right? If we're all in the same bucket, then it just comes down to, does this map represent or that map represent better? But when there's numerical or when there's deviation errors, I'm just trying to fix those on the fly, I guess.
Yep, 100%. That shouldn't be a problem.
And I know we have to go by the census counts, but it is interesting to look at, there are some areas that we're going to be seeing growth within the next 10 years. How can we balance that when you're drawing a map?
So where that comes up is within that 10, everything has to be within the 10% range. The range from the smallest to largest has to be 10% or less. But if you want to choose between maps, the seat that's going to grow the most should be short. It should be a negative so that it'll stay balanced over time.
But we have to use the 2020 census as the guide. And I was just noting too, like in our facilities master plan packet toward the back, you can see upcoming developments per, so that's, helpful, but they seem to be kind of spread out.
But the good news is you get to do this again in 6 years because the new census will be out. So this is, because we're in the point we are, it's not like it will be a 10-year wait for any adjustments. It'll be a 6-year wait.
Correct. Yeah, you'll use these seats in 24, 26, 28, and 30, and they'll be redrawn for 32.
I just wonder on map 113 if like section 1, you maybe changed a little bit so it was a little smaller population knowing growth may come, you still stay within that deviation. Just a thought there and try to take in the considerations that Trustee Counter gave. I'd love to see a map that you're interested in.
It's actually already short, as the author mentioned. It is short in part. It's a little too short. It's 5.2, so we'd probably want to bring it down. But you're exactly right. We wouldn't need to take it all the way to 0 to near balance. It could be negative as long as the map gets in that 10% range, and that makes sense.
So just to clarify then, the request of the board is to have a revised, one additional map brought forward, and that's a revision to 113. Were there other?
And also 104.
And 104 to be revised as well.
To accommodate that upper section to keep Whitney Ranch together, just to see. I will say, I would love to hear a little more from the community of HOAs versus elementary boundary lines. I think those, at some point, one of those is probably gonna have to take a greater weight, because I'm noticing that's the differences between the maps, right?
Well, and that was actually my question on the 104, 111 bouncing. 111 kind of did it based on the relatively major roads. Sounds like we should take another shot at it, trying to focus more on the HOA lines. Worry so much about hitting the major roads, correct?
I think 111 actually did accomplish the HOA lines, right? If I'm looking at it correctly. I mean, I'm glancing really quickly.
Well, and is very close with the school boundaries too. It just seems the most.
Yeah, sorry, I meant 112. Yeah, 112 came from 104.
Yes, I think 112, like you said, it followed just major roadways, but if you're living in the community, like West Oaks Boulevard, is it usually it goes through the HOA. And so if you were to use that as a boundary line, I think it was just naturally used because it made sense on the map. It would just be interesting to see, can we keep that HOA together, but also still have some of the elementary school boundary lines for 112, which was a new revision of 104.
Right. Yeah, we can do that. And one of the interesting things, we'll certainly prepare that, and it'll be posted a week in advance. As you may recall, I believe Dr. Lever probably mentioned the first time, the definition of community interest is an area that benefits from being in a single trustee area. We often get communities that don't want to be in a single trustee area because they liked voting for 5, they would still like to vote for 2, because an individual can only vote for 1, obviously. But when your HOA holds the debate, do you have just the candidates for trustee area 1 there? Or do you have the trustee candidates for area 1 followed by area 2? So, yes, so we can draw the map to try to illustrate it, and people may come in and say, thank you for putting us together, but don't.
So trustees, just to clarify, and but is it, there's a request for, is it 2 additional or 2 additional maps to be brought forward? Okay, okay, because this would be agendized as an action item at the next meeting, so want to make sure that the maps the board wants to consider are available.
And individuals can still submit maps up until
Friday at midnight.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Yeah. Whew. Okay. We will now move on to item 9, our consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are to be considered routine and will be enacted by one motion followed by a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the Board of Trustees or staff request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. Any items removed will be voted upon following the motion to approve the consent calendar. Does any trustee wish to remove an item from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
First by Trustee Counter, second by Trustee Sutherland. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Julie Hub,
Yes.
Rochelle Price, Derek Counter,
Yes.
Michelle Sutherland,
Yes.
Tiffany Sadoff.
Yes, motion passes. Okay, moving on to item 10.1. I'd like to welcome Dr. Tony Limoges, our Associate Superintendent of Human Resources, to join us in presenting Resolution 232437, our final resolution to reduce or eliminate particular kinds of services pursuant to Ed Code 44955.
Thank you, President Sadoff. Good evening again. Based upon the current budget and reductions in particular kinds of services or programs, the district will be using final reduction of force or layoff notices to employees, issuing notices and making other reductions to provide the district with maximum flexibility to meet its financial obligations for 2024-2025. Due to the notice deadline, and I presented to you early in the year in March, the state deadline is March 15th. The following resolution is to dismiss those certificated employees. I will share with the board that we were able to, due to various openings, is to find reassignment options for the employees that are mentioned on this. So I am recommending the motion to take action on Resolution 232437, final resolution to reduce or eliminate particular kinds of services pursuant to Education Code 44955.
Okay, and just for clarification, these are reassignments, is that correct?
They were, yes, management reassignments.
Perfect. Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, first by Trustee Hub, second by Trustee Sutherland. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Julie Hub,
Yes.
Derek Counter,
Yes.
Michelle Sutherland,
Yes.
Tiffany Sadoff.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Dr. Limoges, will you please continue with item 10.2, Resolution 232438, final resolution to reduce or eliminate classified school services for the 24-25 school year.
Thank you so much. Based on that, I'm going to read a very similar thing, but it's different because this one is for classified services. Based upon the current budget and reductions in particular kinds of services programs, the district will be using final reduction in force layoff notices to employees, just for the benefit of the board and public. This is a process that we go through, which we use the terminology right sizing that has a lot to do with the current populations and the variances within the district as sites grow and go smaller. Issuing notices and making other reductions will provide the district with maximum flexibility to meet its financial obligations for 24-25. Due to the notice deadline, as there was a change 2 years ago for classified service employees to follow the certificate employee deadline of May 15th, the following resolution is to dismiss those classified service. I will also share, due to various openings in the district in different positions, we were also able to find opportunities for the aforementioned employees. So I am going to recommend a motion to take action on Resolution 23-24-38, final resolution to reduce or eliminate classified school services for the 2024-2025 school year.
Great, thank you. And I know it was mentioned, but just clarifying, this is right-sizing due to enrollment and needs in the classroom. I know the board has asked that we keep cuts away from the classroom, and so just clarifying for the public that this is right-sizing based on enrollment.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
First by trustee Counter, second by trustee Hupp. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Julie Hupp,
Yes.
Derek Counter,
Yes.
Michelle Sutherland,
Yes.
Tiffany Sadoff.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item 11.1, our facilities master plan. At this time, I'd like to welcome Jennifer Stollerber, our Deputy Superintendent Business and Operations, and Craig Rouse, our Senior Director of Facilities Maintenance and Operations, to present an information item, our facilities master plan update.
Good evening, President Satoff, trustees, Superintendent Stock. Tonight we're going to review the facilities master plan update. We're not going to go through the entirety of the plan, so we have a small PowerPoint tonight. So we're going to review our timeline. We're going to recap what we've done so far. We're going to go over the purpose of the facilities master plan, the process we went through to develop the facilities master plan, and some of our accomplishments from developing the facilities master plans, and then we're going to move into next steps. So our timeline recap, we started this back in June of 2022, and with that we had to approve a contract with Capital Public Finance Group, and they helped with advisory services as we updated our facility master plan. We came back in the spring and we did some review with principals, and then we had a subcommittee that met and also provided some information and recommendations. We had some study sessions. We had one in September, and then there was a board meeting discussion on the capital facilities update, which is a document that we also brought previously, and you approved items. And then we were here in January with another study session where we had further discussions. We came back with some additional information related to portables and the delivery method. And now we're here presenting additional information. And I'm going to hand it off to my partner.
Good evening. So the purpose of a facilities master plan is we gather a bunch of information and data that provides a basis for the master plan for planning educational facilities and all the improvements that go along with it. It's a tool to identify the capital needs and other assets of the district. It describes a plan for modernizing and improving facilities to meet the district standards of the educational specifications. Facilities follows ed specs. So that's a huge, first step as we start to move forward. Plan will typically identify the needs well in excess of funding for long-range planning. The California Department of Education, CDE, recommends a long-range plan to address the capital needs of a district. It goes out about 10 to 15 years, and about every 5 years, we update that plan based on the demographic changes in the district. If we see sudden growth or decline in enrollment, that plan is a living document, so we make the changes. And then our facilities master plan is a fluid planning document that reflects our facilities vision to achieve educational excellence. So the process, when we developed the master plan, we started back in spring of 2017. We went out and we walked every site with engineers and architects, and we identified the capital facility needs of all of our schools and operational buildings. We did inspections, we had conversations with school administrators, our in-house staff, the end users, and the community. And then we further engaged board members, school site educational partners, parents to determine the project needs and what those priorities were with tier 1 through 3 projects. If you guys recall, we went through that in our board workshops. And then we got the board input, and the results were put into a FMP that was adopted by the Board of Trustees in April of 2018. So this document that we're bringing forward as an information item tonight is just an update of our 2018 FMP Facility Master Plan and reflects the data related to the district demographics and impacts from new and future development over the past 4 to 6 years. So what did we accomplish since 2018? Well, we've completed over $87 million of school facilities improvements. And then, last few board meetings we brought forward, and you approved last board meeting, $58 million for capital funding, facility fundings that we identified for capital facility needs. Those needs are incorporated in the facility master plan. And as we update the master plan in the next round, those projects will, as we complete projects, we'll eliminate them for the facility master plan. So in that $58 million, we identified HVAC replacement, energy management control upgrades, put in a Corey Trail before and after school portable, and then we identified growth at Corey Trail, which we are currently working on 5 portable classrooms out of Corey Trail. They'll be ready before the next school year. And then the 2 TK portables at Rocklin Elementary you approved that contract and the consent agenda tonight, so we'll move forward work with the architect to get the design moving forward. And the big push on that is to lock in a portable manufacturer so that we can get those portables built before the summer of next year. And then 30 replacement portables, we determined those by the needs assessment, added the gable roofs and skylights, and that'll be the next phase. We currently have an RFP out for architects right now for designing those 30 portables, and we'll be bringing those contracts back probably in June for the architects. We'll go into the design phase and then start the projects will probably be 2026 because we've missed that window for 2025. And then in that original $58 million, we talked about LED lighting replacement district-wide. And what we're directed to do is to work with a solar consultant to do a district-wide assessment of solar opportunities and needs within the district. That's going to take place over the summer, and we'll be bringing that report back to get further direction on whether we go solar or we do the LED lighting replacement. So our next steps would be to present the facility master plan as an action item at the next board meeting on May 15th. As I talked about earlier, we're starting that process to hire architects and solicit bids to implement the capital facility needs based off that $58 million that we have. And then we're going to review the staffing level and perform needs analysis in anticipation of multiple active projects. A lot of work coming down, and it's very timely work that has to take place in 11 weeks during the summertime. And we have to have that completed. We have to have the HVAC working, and the students have to have a classroom to get back to in those 11 weeks. So there's a lot of coordination and program that needs to take place there. And then bring items to the board for approval as the 2024 FMP is implemented. So as we go through this process, we'll be bringing contracts forward and talk about where we're at, updating. If there's any changes to the FMP based on demographics, growth, we'll be bringing those projects forward. Any questions?
I'll just say, so again, having been on the committee and looked at it, so thank you. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of strategic direction stuff, and it's a lot of guesses and assumptions and models, and if we did this, that, and then there's a lot of, based on every model you have, here's how it all gets funded, and here's where the money comes from. So thank you for that. Thank you for pulling it all together. It's a challenge because I think when every person in the public looks at their own school and they're like, well, how come this isn't fixed, or where is that? And trust me, we have a great plan and things are put together. There's always emergencies that happen, but thank you for the work to put together something that looks like a phone book, even though from my respective school or whatever, it's like, all I see is this. So thank you for that. I know it's a pain. I know it's frustrating, but sorry, I apologize, but thank you.
Yeah, I think the plan, I was just double checking, I think it was just under 250 pages, right? I think 247. And so, it's a great thing because it means we're doing our work to identify what can we do better on our campuses, right, to make sure we're the most effective. It's a difficult thing for a trustee because we're saying, yes, there's all of this need, and how are we going to prioritize it and what are we going to do? And so I appreciate the opportunity, though, to say, okay, what are we going to do first with this $58 million? And you taking the time to really walk us through, here's how we prioritize some of these projects. Everything in the facilities master plan are great things that we've heard from the community and our staff and even our students. But I appreciate that you're taking it in steps and that you're saying, hey, here's what we can do today, here's what we can do in the next 5 years. And so I greatly appreciate that. And I also appreciate in the background document, there was a little section in there, and I thought I would just read it. The facilities master plan is intended to guide strategic decision-making and operational planning. It is not intended as a funding plan or a commitment to allocate specific financial resources. It's designed to align facility investments with educational priorities and community needs. And I thought that right there, sometimes we've had people ask, why a facilities master plan? It's a giant wish list. Well, yes, it is, but it's our way of saying we want to make sure we're always hitting educational priorities and community needs. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I look forward to seeing you bring it back at our next meeting. Any other questions? No? Thank you for the information. Yeah. I actually have the printout of each individual page. You laugh, but it's... Okay, we'll now move to item 11.2. We'd like to welcome Bill McDonald, Associate Superintendent of Elementary Education and Educational Services, to join us to present information on a K-2 foundational reading work update.
Thank you, President Sadoff, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Stock. It's my pleasure to be back in front of you this evening to talk a little bit about our work in K-2 foundational reading that we've been doing over the past 2 to 3 years. With me tonight is our program specialist, Kylie Bray, in curriculum instruction, who's been leading a lot of this work and has done a fantastic job. So happy to have her join me this evening. Some background on this work and why we initiated the work is, we've had learning recovery teachers for several years now. They noticed significant gaps working with small groups of students in reading, that students didn't have the skills they needed to be successful as they were coming up through our elementary schools. They were masking a lot of decoding issues with memorization of sight words and using context clues, but really couldn't sound the words themselves out. Teachers involved in updating our district assessments found that they weren't adequate in actually diagnosing some of the reading delays we were seeing with students. And then in general, we're hearing teachers say that they just felt ill-equipped to address some of the reading needs they were seeing post-pandemic. Simultaneously, there's been a lot of work in cognitive psychology and technology around brain scanning that's done a lot of, shown that there's a science behind how students learn to read. And we may not be doing the best practices in terms of actually following that science. We now know that many children don't learn to read naturally. Only about 40% kind of pick this up by magic or osmosis and learn to read, but actually about 60% of students need explicit instruction that connects sounds to the symbols of letters, and that phonics and phonemic awareness is critical in terms of building strong readers. We wanted to make sure that before we had our next adoption, which is several years away, that we had a way to address that need with our current students. Finally, in the state of California, Senate Bill 114 was passed last year that required us to have screening or assessment for reading delays and dyslexia. That went into place this year, so that's also a piece of this work. Fortunately, 2 years ago in October, I want to thank the board because you approved $400,000 to fund this work in foundational reading so that we could do research, we could do piloting, we could hire teachers to work with curriculum, and with the goal of providing this high quality, systematic, explicit foundational reading skill instruction to all our students, better support students that may have dyslexia, That's approximately 15 to 20% of the population. Provide early intervention for struggling students and ensure that every student in our schools can decode and is able to read by 3rd grade, which is a huge goal we all share. So to talk more about the process we followed and the steps we took to get to this point, I'm going to have Kylie Bray take over. So come on in, Kylie.
President Sathoff, trustees, Superintendent Stock, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to share the work that we've been doing in this area with you. I have to admit, talking to a room of 30 teachers is a little bit easier than talking to you just because of familiarity. So the waiver in my voice, please don't take that as any insult of just, this is newer for me. I'll take the classroom of students and teachers any day. So, but in our journey, I just wanted to share with you where we've been. Our journey started a couple of years ago, as Mr. McDonald has shared, and a lot of that came from the upcoming dyslexia legislation from Governor Newsom that we are anticipating, along with those gaps that our learning recovery teachers were identifying. And it was through that work that we then convened the assessment work group, which was a collection of teachers who were really passionate about trying to find the assessments that would best fit the needs of both teachers and students. And then through that work and the collaboration of teachers, we identified some additional assessments that we needed, along with assessments that just weren't working well for us. And so we were very excited to kind of work through that with the assessment work group and looking at the dyslexia screeners, and alongside looking at this science of reading research and saying, we need to do something about this. And really it came from the teachers, and I felt like I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to work alongside many of our primary teachers who are saying we need help, right? And so in doing so, we took some time to explore. So we looked at 5 different supplementary programs based on the science of reading of research, and within our learning recovery programs started exploring those, and the great success quickly spread to our Tier 1 classroom teachers who said, wow, that's really working there. How can I do that in my classroom too? Along with their own research. And so over the past year, that leads us to where we are kind of in this school year, where we now have a guiding work or a learning network that we've called it, of teachers and administrators who are collaboratively working. There's 22 teachers and administrators working together to look at the different supplementary programs that were available and try them in the classrooms. And through that process, we ended up having 73 teachers involved in trying something in their classroom. So anywhere from trying a little bit of something here and there to really making a big shift in their classrooms. It was pretty amazing because it's really from the teacher level that like, I'm interested in doing this. Can I be involved? And it's like, if you're interested, let's do it. So almost all of our sites had at least one grade level in K through 2, trying out at least one of the supplementary materials. 6 specific sites had a site-wide focus, K through 2. So we really had a lot of involvement. And through that process, we've been collecting both quantitative and qualitative data. And so through that, I want to share with you some of that data that we've collected. So we had 942 students that received explicit and systematic phonics instruction through these, the exploration of these supplementary materials. And in those 942 students, we found 4% growth. And knowing that it's a moving target, right? Because when you have a student come in as a kindergartner or first grader or second grader, your hope is that throughout the year they're gaining skills. So we assess multiple times throughout the year to ensure that they're gaining those new skills. So a student who might be successful in the beginning of the year may not be successful at the end of the year because they're not meeting those growth markers. Well, 4% of our students, we had growth, by 4%, which increased by 38 students. On the other side, we also wanted to measure students that were not necessarily receiving that explicit and systematic instruction from the Science of Reading research-based supplementary materials, but we're still receiving instruction from our core curriculum, which is Benchmark Advance. And while there was growth, they didn't grow as fast as they needed to. And so we actually found a 1% drop, which meant we left behind 13 kids. And so through this data, we really realized if we had been doing this district-wide, and hopefully all of our kids were receiving this, we would have gained an additional 89 students meeting those moving targets. That's 4 classrooms of kids that we would have had reading on level or even above at this point in their school year. So that really led to the importance of we need to do something district-wide, and our teachers are excited about this opportunity to help them grow. On top of, there's the numbers piece, but also it's really important that we talk with the teachers and the students to make sure that what we're doing is working for them, right? So much of teaching is a heavy lift, and there's so many different things that they're having to teach. So it was really important to our team that we found something that was engaging for students and was an fairly easy lift, relatively, for teachers. So students reported increased measures of confidence if they received the systematic and explicit instruction. So we had a lovely first grader who said, "I love writing the words and spelling them correctly." Right? There's that confidence that they have to move forward with their skill set. We also had classroom teachers who reported a high level of growth and confidence in their students' success. An example of that being my class this year is so much stronger in reading and writing and spelling compared to last year. And then also we have our learning recovery teachers and EL, teachers of English language learners, who reported that it's been heavily impactful for not only students that may have some challenges with reading, but also their newcomers. So it's been so impactful for my ELLs, or English language learners. Many newcomers are finding so much success in decoding using UFly, which is University of Florida Literacy Initiatives program that we tried out. Also, learning recovery teachers reported a decrease in learning needs in this area in learning recovery, which allowed them to be able to better support students in other areas that they may need, like in math or in writing or in other areas that they don't have to deal with the decoding piece. So that's pretty exciting. So that leads me to where we are now and where we're moving forward for. So a work group of 22 teachers and administrators looked at the different supplemental programs that we were trying. They had robust conversations about each of the programs, looking at student engagement. Again, that relatively easy lift for teachers, the data. We had an opportunity to go in and walk through several of our classrooms that were trying the materials and talking with students, looking at the instruction, assessing engagement, really talking with the teachers about their excitement for the programs and how they felt it was impacting their students. And it was through that work group that we landed on 2 key curriculums, or not curriculums, but supplementary materials. So Hegarty being one of them, that addresses phonemic awareness, or the sounds that are in words. And that's a practice that takes about 10 minutes a day and would replace what they're currently using Benchmark Advance for. And then the other program that with that one would be UFly, as they call it, Foundations, or University of Florida Literacy Institute. And that's a 30-minute practice that explicitly and systematically teaches phonics. Again, that would replace what we currently use Benchmark Advance for, so those 2 practices would be supplemented with this curriculum. And then we have 3 sites, Title I sites, that will be utilizing Reading Horizons Discovery. That is a supplemental program that provides the same type of instruction that Hegarty and UFly does, but it does so with additional tools, strategies, assessments, and professional development to support our teachers that are supporting our Title I students in classrooms. So we're very excited about this coming work. We've already started moving in this direction. including in our most recent April PD Day, we trained our TK, K, and first grade teachers in the research and best practices surrounding these programs, and helping them understand the why of the science of reading, and then sharing some of our preliminary data to kind of help cause some excitement for these programs. And then we are going to actually start training here in May, this coming Monday, with our phonemic awareness resource, so that teachers have some of the seeds planted for when they're getting ready to do their planning this summer. We're providing some additional support materials and resources so that they feel like they have the tools to do that. Because we can't do all the training here in spring, we'll do some of the training also at the beginning of August, with hopefully them feeling confident to implement at the beginning of next school year. And then throughout the year, we're looking forward to supporting our kindergarten and first grade teachers in that implementation. We chose to hold off for a little bit for second grade because they are taking on the new science curriculum, and we wanted to weigh the amount of new. And so we are going to focus our learning and recovery efforts in second and third grade to kind of intervene in there, and then train our second grade teachers in spring of next year so that they can implement the following year and have those students roll up with that skill set. So we're super excited for what's to come for our students. I feel so honored to have the opportunity to work with so many teachers in this journey. We've all really worked to learn as best we can with the current research and do what's best not only for students, but then what's good for teachers too. And I'm super excited to see the growth in our students, that they have the confidence and skill set moving forward to when they get into the upper grades, having the skills that they need to be able to decode those bigger words, right? And being able to understand when they don't have the pictures or the sight words to rely on from that memorization. So very excited about that.
Kylie, what kind of materials are involved in the Heggerty and the U-Fly? Is it mostly digital, or is it books, papers? What is it?
Great question. So Heggerty is all auditory and oral. So a teacher's manual has really a scripted practice that they go through, like anywhere from 5 to 8 different routines in a 10-minute period that they do with students, and it's all just call and response with students. So there's no additional materials that are necessary for that. For university or U-Fly foundations, those have like slide decks that they provide that walk teachers through the step-by-step. You put it on the screen and they're just helping the students to access the material, along with like whiteboards. They'll use those and some letter activities. And so we're looking to provide those resources for teachers so that they're not feeling like they're having to recreate the wheel or prep a lot of things, but have those tools at their fingertips so they're not having to go and find a lot of them. So.
Okay, excellent. And thank you. You gave an excellent presentation. Very good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. You did great. It's so exciting, and I appreciate the dedication to best practices. Seeing, this statistic about, students who may have dyslexic tendencies, 15 to 20%, to be able to do something like this at a tier 1 level is amazing. That the pilot outcomes, thank you for sharing that. It doesn't surprise me at all that we have so many teachers in Rocklin Unified that were ready and willing to take that on. But yeah, just super exciting. I would love to see more of this.
Question, the Heggerty and the U-Fly, and then there's Reading Horizons. See, that slide's perfect. Are we doing all of those programs, curriculum, insights at every K-2, or are we only doing the Reading Horizons at the tier 1 and everybody else gets, like, I'm just trying to figure out the differences.
Yes, so Reading Horizons is a program that has the similar instruction that Heggerty and U-Fly does.
Okay.
We will only be utilizing Reading Horizons at 3 of our Title I sites because they provide additional resources like professional development, assessments. It's a little more comprehensive, so it will really support the students at those sites. And then at the remaining 9 elementary school sites, we'll be utilizing Hegarty and UFly in combination because they have 2 different skill sets, the auditory and then one that combines the auditory with the symbols of the letters. And that's how kids, get the skills to then be able to read. So those together will work.
Cool. And then just the benchmark advance survey, how long have we had that? Is that?
So we've
It's
had
been around for a while, right?
We've had benchmark advance for 7 years, I believe. Actually, I think you're right. Yes, so I think we're ending year 8, coming into year 9.
Good rotation then.
Yes.
This looks like an amazing program, so thank you.
And then trustees, I would add that what I really appreciate about our Ed Services team is recognizing that, the adoption cycle is years off, the whole state standards, and looking at this, and there is a big debate around science of reading that our team said, we see a gap. Our teachers are telling us, our data does, and we're going to do something now to address it, and we'll figure out the adoption when we do on that cycle, but we have an immediate need, and again, appreciated, and this started back when even recommending to the board is setting aside some one-time funding to support this, and then it's great to see, so we approve a plan a couple years ago, what actually happened with those dollars, and you can see right directly in our classrooms the benefit to kids, and that will be an ongoing benefit. So appreciate that, and appreciate our team for not waiting for an adoption, but to do something now to help kids now.
An additional clarification is that we're not throwing Benchmark Advance out completely because these 2 programs really address 2 foundational skills, but there's a lot of other components to English language arts, including vocabulary building, background knowledge, writing skills, fluency. And so we'll still utilize our current program for those resources, but these programs will really supplant this phonemic awareness and phonics instruction that we're finding is really critical and isn't in our current curriculum.
I just want to say thank you, not only for your great work that you've been doing, but a great presentation. I think any parent listening in could understand all of these slides, right? And even talking about the difference between the different strategies of what you're doing. And this is the good stuff. I think this is hopefully why we're all here, right? Of, a child being able to read effectively at a young age impacts every area of their life as they get older, right? And so I so appreciate the work here. And I appreciate, too, the focus and mention here of dyslexia and some of the screener assessments. Those were some things that we had community members share with us and bring up to us the last couple of years and say, hey, what are you doing here? And so I appreciate you saying, in 21, 22, we kind of started exploring. Now we have these screener assessments with our struggling students. And so I was just wondering, this is a lot of information, which is great. How much of this is a student receiving in a classroom in a traditional learning environment, or is this mostly tailored to those, like one of the bullet points, provide early intervention for struggling readers?
So it's very key that all of our students are receiving this instruction. What we found over the last few years is that we'd have students coming into learning and recovery that weren't getting that explicit and systematic instruction in their classrooms. And so we were intervening in an area that really they should be receiving in their classrooms. So we're now ensuring that the students will receive that instruction in their classrooms. And then if they need additional supports, they could potentially get that through learning recovery or our intervention practices, along with multiple, not views of it, but repetitions, right? That some of our students that with dyslexia, they may be able to get it if they only see it 3 to 5 times in their Tier 1 classroom, and that's great. But then they might need multiple repetitions, and that's where intervention can come in and help provide those additional opportunities for students to see the same material, but need that extra practice.
Right, I love that, because I think, you'll probably see some of that over the years diminish a little bit because they're being exposed, right, in their day-to-day encounters. And I really appreciate the bullet point towards the beginning, because it is so true. Students were masking decoding issues with memorization and context clues. I remember with my little one, when she was learning to read, I'm like, oh, she can read. And I'm like, wait, no, you're really good at masking and memorizing, right? And so I appreciate that you guys really looked at that and said, hey, wait, we may be seeing some of this, but the reality is there are still some root issues, and we want to make sure every student gets this material. So I appreciate you doing the work on this, and thank you. And last question, how can we help?
I think just helping to ensure that our teachers have the materials, which is what, we're making those steps in the right direction, and you've helped over the past couple of years to ensure that we have the funding to be able to do that, I think is a step in the right direction. And then we'd love to continue to provide professional development, because it is a mindset shift for our teachers. Unfortunately, when you get into teaching and you go to get your credential, they don't really teach you how to teach kids how to read. It's really weird. I don't know why that's the case, but in some senses, the research is saying, no, this is the right path in which you need to move. And so we want to make sure that our teachers have the tools to feel confident in implementing the curriculum. And so I think that's a piece.
And trustees, even another connection, as I was out observing the work in some of our classrooms, is we noticed that because of the call and response piece that Ms. Spray mentioned, that we're even noticing that gives additional speech articulation practice to students. And so we're curious to see if we'll have some students that need some mild speech language intervention needs may actually have that addressed in a Tier 1 fashion through the daily repetition of call response. So that's where, when things start to align and connect, that may even help students with those milder articulation issues not have to go receive the special services because they're getting them right in the classrooms.
Music to my ears. That's great. Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, we do have one public comment on this item, so I'd like to welcome up Shannon Cantanella.
Hi, good evening. Shannon Catanella, Rocklin parent. I just want to say that I actually feel lucky to be here this evening. I'm very excited about this. I wasn't aware that it was rolling out to this level, because this discussion wasn't happening 4 or 5 years ago. I actually remember coming up here and talking about dyslexia. 2 of my 3 children are dyslexic readers. So I would encourage, when you ask how to best help, I have a couple bits of information just to better educate the parent population about what to look out for, because I think teachers will be benefiting every single student in the classroom. This is a phenomenal program. Teaching phonics and phonetics like this is going to benefit absolutely everybody, but it's important to remember that, as Dr. McDonald said, it's 1 in 4 or 1 in 5, so you've got like 7 dyslexic readers in every classroom. That's a lot. And it comes in varying degrees, and it impacts children different ways, including handwriting and math. It's inherited, and if one child is a dyslexic reader, it's 50% likely that the sibling is also a dyslexic reader. Notice I keep saying dyslexic reader because I've been able to use that with my kids to kind of encourage them that it's not necessarily a disability in our household, it's just a different way that they're learning to interpret the world. And it's diagnosed with 90% certainty halfway through kindergarten. So looking for ways to help, I would put a call out for parents to report from home on what they're seeing and watch that communication between teachers when the parents are saying, I need more help or I need more of this, tools to help them out, and host special education forums that help parents and guardians better advocate and understand what this is. I would also ask what the screener is that's being used, because it's potential it could be something that the parents could use with their older children who would have missed this entire phenomenal program that's going to the kindergarten and first graders, but you've got some.
Thank you, Shannon. Okay, thank you again for that presentation. I appreciate the incredible work that is happening, and thank you for the follow through on that. Okay, we will now move on to item 12. This is our public comment on non-agenda items. A few important reminders. This agenda item is to give anyone in attendance an opportunity to address the board concerning any non-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. The board will not take action on any item not appearing on the posted agenda, but may refer the matter to a staff member for follow-up. A complaint about a specific employee of the district shall be made to that employee's immediate supervisor or the principal as required by Administrative Regulation 1312.1. To protect student privacy, please refrain from using student names or identifying characteristics. The board respects each individual's right to express varied ideas and opinions and expects speakers to refrain from personal attacks based on protected categories under state and federal law, including race, religion, sexual orientation, disability, etc. Please be mindful that students may be watching. Please fill out a green public comment card, complete with all information, and turn it in prior to the agenda item being closed. I will call your name to invite you to the podium and will state who is on deck. When you approach the podium, please restate your name, the city you live in, and the school your children attend. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. All comments must be respectful. Please, no profanity. Just two? Oh, okay. Okay, first up, we have Price Johnson, and on deck will be Susan Conforti.
Good evening, board. I'm Price Johnson, parent of 2 at Rocklin Elementary and campus volunteer. I wanted to lead by thanking each and every one of you for the decisioning last week on the buildings. I think from this layman's perspective, that was the best call we could have made, from windows to gables. I think each of you had something to contribute, and I know we have a building on Rocklin L that leaks every time it rains, and so I think all that's gonna help, so thank you there. Tonight, though, my heart is super heavy with the announcement that President Sadoff made at the meeting's start. For a moment, I had this glimpse that maybe we were taking heed of the denied appeal, that we were taking heed of the lawsuit by the CDE, that we were listening finally to our teachers' union, subject matter experts, students, teachers, your student body presidents, and the community. And it's so far the opposite of collaboration that you showed last week with the building selection. Pro bono to me sets off so many red flags. Who are we accepting help from? What is their background? What incentives do they have for offering free legal services? What are the repercussions on our community if we fail and we lose in court? Or if they succeed, what do we owe? Is this legal services that we are seeking out going forward, or are these legal services that you've already acquired? So many concerns and questions that I have, and I think the Rocklin public should have as well. This is kicking the can on a problem that this board originated. This was policy that you brought forward, that you were unwilling to even pause and craft this policy with us so that we could address your concerns, which I believe are valid. Each one of you has kids, to my knowledge, and I believe you care about them as much as any other student, but you refuse to pause and craft this policy with us, with your teachers' union, and with the CDE. So at every turn, I've seen the opposite of transparency and collaboration on this matter, and it's such a distraction from what we should be focusing on.
Thank you, Price. Next up, we have Susan. Following that, Daniela Zimmerman.
Conforti. I'm president of a local 4-county PFLAG chapter called PFLAG Greater Placer County. PFLAG is a national organization that supports, advocates for, and educates about LGBTQ people. I strongly urge you to repeal your policy requiring teachers and staff to disclose the LGBTQ status of students to their parents and families. For many youth, school is their only safe place, their only place to be themselves. Your policy puts students at harm, makes learning difficult, and unfortunately will increase suicide rates because 80% of trans people contemplate suicide. When you were young, you might have been curious and questioning about yourself. You might have confided in a trusted adult, assuming your musings were private. Please consider the privacy needs of the youngsters who are now like you were then. Even if you always felt heterosexual and cisgender, meaning okay with whatever the doctor said you were when you were born. Even so, you wanted your privacy and a place to be yourself. Let school be a safe place. Sometimes it's the only safe place. I understand parents are fearful and want to know, but their fears can be dispelled by information that PFLAG can provide. If you want to know about your child's gender identity and expression, I suggest talking to them lovingly and non-judgmentally. And again, PFLAG can help. There's no reason to fear what is unfamiliar. Please avoid politics. Please teach and protect all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Up next is Daniela, followed by Alexandra Edith.
Good evening. My name is Daniela Zimmerman. I'm a retired educator, including several years in this district. I am on the board of PFLAG Greater Placer County with Susan, and I'm also the board president of the Placer LGBTQ+ Center. I'm an ally with many friends and family members in the LGBTQ community, and I've taught many students who identified as LGBTQ, and I continue to work with young people. One of the things that we do in PFLAG is we have a support group for parents, family, and friends who've had a loved one, a friend come out to them. And 9 times out of 10, parents are the last to know. That happened to me. Parents are the last to know. Why is that? Because it's the parents' love and support that is what you want to risk the least, right, by coming out to a parent. So it's okay that parents come out to, that students come out to parents last, or that anyone comes out to their parents last. I just talked to someone who came out in their 40s to their mother who's in their 70s. So, you know, it's not an easy thing to do, to come out, but you have to do it in your own time when you feel safe and supported. Most folks that come out have to make sure they have backup plans in place in case they are rejected. And studies show that up to 68% of folks who come out to their families are rejected by their families. Another study shows that up to half of teens who come out to their families end up rejected and having to leave home in the foster care system, in group homes. Not ideal. Please.
Thank you, Daniela. Next up, we have Alexandra Edith. On deck, Sabrina Naves.
My name is Alexandra Edith. I'm a member of the Rocklin community. Rocklin School Board, District Policy 21, which you have passed against California Educational Code, state and federal law, Ed Code Section 220, Assembly Bill 537, and Title IX, respectively, assumes that parents have a greater understanding of who their child is than the child themselves, while unambiguously contributing to suicidality in trans children. 2016 study, Suicide and Suicidal Behavior Among Transgender Persons, shows that, and I quote, gender-based victimization, discrimination, bullying, violence, being rejected by the family, friends, and community are the major risk factors that influence the suicidal behavior among transgender persons. 2022 National Survey on LGBTQ Youth Mental Health further details that, quoting, 45% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year, including more than half of transgender and non-binary youth. P21 on its face singles out one group of students based on that group's legally protected right to express themselves as they see fit, while failing to provide any educational or administrative purposes justifying said discrimination. It is impossible to, with one hand, claim a desire to protect children, and with the other, pen regulations that will end trans children's lives. I am here tonight to implore that you do as California Department of Education has demanded and repeal P21, restoring the rights of trans and non-binary youth and actually protecting the children that will become the future of California. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alexandra. Next up, we have Sabrina, followed by Emily Sweet.
Sabrina Naves, President of PFLAG Sacramento. Good evening, board members of Rocklin Unified School District. I'm here tonight, along with many other concerned parents and community members, to request reopening of discussion on District Policy 21, the forced outing policy adopted by this board. I'm a lifelong resident of the greater Sacramento area, a veteran of the United States Air Force, a member of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, and current president of the Sacramento chapter of PFLAG, a group dedicated to supporting parents, friends, and members of our community. I felt an urgency to come tonight to speak because of the severe distress this policy has caused to children and parents. To any parent who might be worried about their children expressing a queer identity or gender nonconforming behavior, I have some words of encouragement. Kids will be much more likely to share their experiences and feelings with you if you show them that you will love them no matter what. That includes being aware of how you speak about other people, especially members of our community. Let them know that you will never shame them, ostracize them, or kick them out of their homes for it. Parents who are concerned about the gender identity and/or romantic orientation of their children can cultivate a safer environment for their kids to talk with them rather than focus on forcing schools to out their kids and further create a divide in relationships. Our PFLAG Sacramento community has seen parent-child relationships improve as guardians and parents learn to be affirming. We want all children to have loving and supportive parents and a lifelong relationship that is rooted in trust, healthy boundaries, and unconditional love. If there are any parents here tonight who would like to learn more about supporting their child, we are here for you. The policy from the state of California and the federal government is clear. This policy is illegal. My sincere hope is that after hearing commentary tonight, you will seriously reconsider rescinding this harmful policy that breaches trust between all involved, costs the school district crucial funds due to litigation and loss of funding, and distracts from the goal of education, quality education for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Now, Emily. And on deck will be Harley Larson.
Good evening, Superintendent, trustees, and clerk. My name is Emily Smet, and I apologize for my poor handwriting. But I am a transgender woman, and I'd like to speak on the school district's parent notification policy, which in effect is a forced outing policy for transgender students and stands in violation of state law and the California Educational Code. To the board and the assembled community, I understand why this policy was enacted. I understand the fear that drives these policies, the fear of a parent that you will lose control of the most precious thing in your life, your child. You fear that society will treat them as you believe society always treated queer people, relegating them to the margins of society. So you want your child to fit in, to be normal. I understand this fear because, like all trans adults, I was once a trans kid. A kid that had all those same fears, that society would treat me the way I saw trans people treated on sitcoms or Jerry Springer, or talked about the way older people in my life talked about trans people. These fears kept me closeted for years, until I found I could no longer hide or suppress my true self. Once I allowed myself the freedom to transition, I found all these fears to be unfounded, and beyond that, I found love, community, and acceptance in ways I never knew possible. And perhaps most importantly for the concerned parents in the room, I found I could still get a college education, have a career, and even find someone to marry me. But what I mean to say is that fear is normal, and we must let our kids grow up and let go of that compulsive need to control. Let go of this fear and allow your children to become self-assured and well-rounded adults. I assure you that things do get better. And so I encourage you to remove this illegal, and I can't stress that enough, illegal policy, to not live in fear and to let kids come out.
Thank you. Next up, we have Harley Larson, and on deck will be Jen Brookover.
And district staff, Harley Larson, Rocklin, Breen. On February 1st, the California Department of Education sent a letter informing the district that the board majority's gender notification policy was discriminatory. The district had a deadline of February 15th to respond to the DOE's request for corrective action, which included informing school personnel and students in writing that the policy is not consistent with Ed Code and will not be implemented. It appears the district completely ignored both the letter and the required corrective actions. On February 29th, the district received another letter asking for a response. That same day, a partner from the district's lawyer sent a 6-page reply, including footnotes, to ask for reconsideration. That request was denied. On April 10th, the DOE filed a lawsuit to force the district to comply because, and I quote, Rocklin USD has at all relevant times through the current date disregarded and or delayed prompt implementation of the corrective actions. This board likes to talk about trust and transparency, but the only reason we know most of this is due to public records requests made by a few district parents. You could have told us about this at the last meeting. I'll ask some questions, and per Board Bylaw 9323, board members or district staff may briefly respond. Why did the district willfully ignore the DOE's letter and requested corrective actions? Why did the district wait until after the deadline to respond when it obviously had already prepared a response? Who made these decisions? Residents of Rocklin want to hear answers to these questions. In closing, President Sadoff, your doublespeak around trust and transparency is despicable. Stop it. Get some help.
Jen Brookover, Rocklin resident, Valley View parent. Good evening, board. Now that the CDE has filed a lawsuit against our district, as parents, community members, taxpayers, and educators, we ask that you stop. Stop wasting money on lawsuits and legal services for discriminatory purposes. Stop putting our district in jeopardy of losing state funding. Stop having our district continually in the news for the wrong reasons. There are amazing things going on in our district, and they are continually overshadowed by the negative press due to this board's actions. Stop using our students as political pawns. This policy is not about supporting students in any way. Stop pretending to be supporters of public education. Your actions have continually proved otherwise. For a majority of my career, I was a public educator. Never once did my district have legal action against them from the State Department of Education. It is embarrassing. Stop with the lack of transparency, lack of honest communication, lack of listening to the students, parents, and teachers and community, lack of fiscal responsibility, and lack of accountability. Trustee Sadoff, at the beginning of this meeting, you stated, let the courts deal with this. It's not as if the California Department of Ed randomly came after Rocklin School District. This is due to the discriminatory policy the board initiated and voted for it. Just stop.
Thank you, Jen. Next up, we have Millie Ann, and then on deck, Kevin Cooper.
Good evening, Millie Ann, Rocklin Quarry Trail. I just want to say it is not appropriate for trustees of a public school system to adopt educational policies to advance a holy war on biblical justice. Destiny Evangelical Church promoted the parental notification policy in its February 10th Sunday show. Destiny Evangelical Church is also known as the American Evangelical Council, and through the Evangelical Council, Destiny paid Julie Hupp, Tiffany Sadoff, and Derek Counter through campaign contributions to implement their religious agenda in public schools. Having a parental notification policy will not bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. It does not advance biblical justice. And it is dishonest and deceitful to say in one setting that this policy is for parents' rights, when in another setting, your people are saying the policy is about biblical justice. There is a First Amendment that allows you to believe whatever biblical perversion that serves your political and financial needs best, but the First Amendment also is clear that the church is to be separate from the state. Listen to the California Department of Education and not Destiny Church or the American Evangelical Council.
Thank you, Millie. Next up, we have Kevin Cooper.
cannot, with words that I would say in front of you ladies, share my anger at the people that are coming up here and talking to you like this. There is no religious jihad in this town. There is no group of people who are trying to remove people's races or their sexual identities. We're sticking up for people and trying to take care of people. Those people include parents. We have watched teachers and groups come from outside of this town and rail on you guys. And it's disgusting and sad and shows that they're silly. And that's probably the only nice thing I can say. I'm tired of hearing about it. You guys are supposed to drive the assets you have to educate kids. Like this great program that you guys are putting together to help kids that have dyslexia. My daughter labored through IEPs for 15 years because at the time, there was no path for kids with dyslexia. I dropped 50 grand as a single dad to help her learn how to read. That's what you guys are supposed to be doing, not pandering to these kooks that are coming in here and yelling at you guys and degrading you. This is wrong. There are two levels of government in the United States, the state government and the federal government. And this case, this idea of removing parents' rights has not won in any federal court. And yet all these experts who are self-proclaimed geniuses come in here and talk about that, and there's no discussion about Escondido or any of these other cases. And the teachers, led by the goofy union, will lose when this comes down. And all the legal costs that everybody's complaining about, which make a very small portion of a $130 million budget, will come down because people are picking fights that they will not win. The media is not covering it, and frankly, certain people on the board won't even talk about that issue because it goes against their constituency. We need to protect not only the children and our parents' rights, and we need to be open about what the legal landscape looks like. There's an American flag over there, there's a California state flag over there, and we live in a republic, and that flag is currently the law of the land.
Thank you, Kevin. That'll complete our public comment for the evening. We'll now move on to item 13.1, pending agenda items. Excuse me, we'll be moving on with our meeting, please. We'll move to item 13.1, pending agenda items. Trustees, do you have any items to be placed on the pending agenda? Seeing none, the meeting is now adjourned.